Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our October 3rd, 2022 regular meeting of the Township of Montclair Planning Board. In accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting a copy of the notice on the first floor of the municipal building and by sending a copy to the newspaper designated by the township for notices. This meeting is being broadcast live on Channel 34 and is streaming live and will be available on demand on YouTube. This meeting is a quasi-judicial proceeding, meaning the board has powers and procedures resembling a court of law, and we're obligated to objectively determine facts and draw conclusions from them in order to provide the basis of an official action. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues of what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and the decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. Please be advised that this is a no-smoking facility and fire exits are to my right, which is your left, and at the back of the room where you most likely entered. As to the order of the evening, each application hearing begins with the applicant or their attorney giving an overview of the application and the variances that are required, if any. We then hear from any expert witnesses the applicant may have to help explain the application and why variances are required. The board members may ask questions of the applicant, the attorney, and their expert witnesses. If you are a member of the interested public but not a witness in the case, you will have two opportunities to speak. At the end of each witness's testimony, you will be given the opportunity to ask the witness questions about his or her testimony. And that's not the time to tell the board what you think of the application. That will come later. To ask questions, you'll have to come up to the front of the room to the lectern here, give us your name and address, and then ask your questions related to the witness's testimony only. After the applicant's witnesses and any objector and objector witnesses have been heard, members of the audience will have their second opportunity to step forward. And at that time, you may express your opinions, positive or negative, about the application. And comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per person. An additional time that the public may be heard is when one or more residents present to the board as an objector to the application. Objectors may be represented by counsel and present their cases, including independent evidence and witnesses for the board to consider after the applicant has finished its case. Different from public comment, objectors and their witnesses are expected to present evidence for the board to consider, as opposed to only their personal opinions, and will be subject to cross-examination by the public and by the applicant. At the completion of the applicant's case, the objector's case, and public comment, the public hearing is closed and the board members discuss the case and vote. At that time, you will be able to listen to our discussion, but you will not be able to participate. And the first thing on our agenda is roll call.
Good evening, Planning Board. It's good to see you guys and meet some of you for the first time. We'll go ahead and get roll going. Mr. Brodock?
I'm here.
Mr. Graham is excused this evening. Mr. Ianwale?
Here.
Ms. Lockman?
Here.
Mr. Ortiz?
Here.
Mr. Pierre? Ms. Schlager?
Here.
Ms. Willis?
Here.
Mr. Nguyen is also excused this evening. Mr. Jacobson?
I am here.
Mr. Neiman?
Here.
Ms. Talley is excused this evening as well. I'm filling in for her. Mr. Nice, excuse me.
Yeah, don't get confused. That's
And Ms. Tiberi? That's roll.
okay. Thank you. Next up, we have the approval of the minutes from September 13th, 2022. Do we have revisions to that? Did we send those to you, Tommy?
Yes, I received revisions from 3 of you all. I think Mr. Ianwale was the last one to send, and I didn't get yours noted down yet, but I have your email.
I think I might have commented on the resolution.
On the resolution, okay.
Yeah. This is the minutes, and I think it was September 12th, not the 13th.
Okay. But I did get those changes noted.
Okay.
On both?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody have any other revisions? No? Then I would make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I'm abstaining because I wasn't here.
Me as well.
Okay.
Abstain.
And I vote aye. I forgot to say that. Okay. Next up, we have the resolution for application 2816 Moodi Day. I think there were a few comments on that.
I've emailed it. Yeah,
No, did you comment?
yeah, just one minor comment that I sent about 4 o'clock. Yeah, it just, all it does is repeat the fact that, if I can, it's about the location of the property. I think it's, whereas on page 4, the property is located in NC Neighborhood Commercial Zone. I think you just say, and between Walnut and James Street.
I see that in paragraph 4 on page 5.
Yeah, but that describes where the zone is. The second paragraph describes where the property is.
Noted, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Neese, did you see Mr. Ianwali's suggested change?
I'm only seeing one. Again, on page 5 in paragraph 4, the property is located in the township's NC neighborhood commercial zone and on Valley Road between.
Yeah, that's my comment, yeah.
That was the only one?
That was the only one, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I have that.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll
Great,
reiterate
thanks.
Okay.
In addition, there were a couple of other changes that folks suggested, which were very helpful. Thank you.
I've just got a general question. I know the town has an overall cap on the number of cannabis businesses that's going to be allowed, but there's no limit on the number of times we can give preliminary approval to that it's in compliance with a conditional use. So like we could approve 9 different things as being within compliance of that conditional use. The town will still only give 3 permits or whatever it is. Okay.
I believe that's the case, yes.
Yeah, I
Thank
thought
you.
that was helpful to know how many licenses as we keep getting these applications.
Mhm.
But
Are there any other changes to the resolution? No, I would make a motion to approve the resolution as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Robin, yeah, I'm abstaining.
Yes, me as well,
For
yeah.
the same reason.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right, next on the agenda is the resolution for application 2606, Adaline Moster property.
I
And,
would note that there were some changes made to that. Thank you, Mr. Brodoff.
yep,
Is that the change in the date, correct?
yes. Were there any other changes to the resolution? No, I would move to approve the resolution as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Guess what? I abstained because I wasn't here.
Me too.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's interesting that the 2 of you have been consistently abstaining.
It's a conspiracy.
Okay, we have no old business, so let's move to new business. And first up, we have application 2805 for 82 Pine Street Meadows.
No. I can say bonjour, and that's about it.
I'd just like to mention that the Development Review Committee looked at that and had a couple of comments, but that was not included in your package.
It is on the website.
It's on the website, so you check that out.
I did download
Yeah,
it and review
okay.
it personally. I hope the board
Yeah,
had a chance, or maybe even you could fill us in at the right time.
We can also pull it, I have it down on the computer too, if we want to pull it up, just let me know.
okay. I just want to make sure that we make a practice of including comments from the Development Review Committee to the planning board so that they see this before the, before the meeting, but thank you.
You're talking about for this application, correct?
Yeah, yes,
Well,
yeah.
I think it's very nice. I think since Tommy joined the planning department, we now get a memo after every development
Well,
review committee meeting, which is very helpful summarizing the concerns. And I think we've addressed them.
Well, my point was that that memo should have gone to the planning
Oh,
board. Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
I
And
think it wasn't in the hard
It
copy
wasn't in
packet
the
or?
hard copy, yeah,
Okay,
Right.
so it wasn't in the hard copy packets, but it is available online.
yeah.
Okay.
Counselor?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board. For the record, Alan Trembulac, appearing on behalf of the applicant, Pine Street Meadows LLC. This is an application for site plan approval to construct an addition to the existing two-family building located at 82 Pine Street. Property is located in the R4 three-story apartment zone district, which permits three-story buildings and permits residential density at the rate of 28 units per acre. The property is also located in the Pine Street Historic District, and this plan was reviewed and I think reviewed very favorably by the Historic Preservation Commission, which issued a report, which I'm sure you all have, which really just had one, I think, relatively minor comment, but otherwise the application was satisfactory to the HPC. The applicant is proposing to construct a three-story addition onto the rear of the existing two-family building. The addition will contain 3 additional two-bedroom apartments, which will increase the total number of apartments on this property from 2 units currently to 5 units, which complies with the density requirements at the rate of 28 units per acre, as I just mentioned. The zoning district does permit three-story building. The existing building's 2 stories. The addition is proposed to be 3 stories. In addition to the proposed three-story addition, as you'll hear tonight, the applicant is proposing a number of other improvements to the property, including removal of what was supposed to be a residential garage, but really looks like a commercial garage structure in the rear of the property. Creation of a new parking area providing for 9 parking spaces with 1 electric vehicle charging station, which results in parking being provided a total of 10 spaces, which complies with the parking ordinance. Proposing a new board-on-board fence, landscaping. I don't think there's much, if any, landscaping at all on this property. We're proposing landscaping around the perimeter of the property, in addition to the board-on-board fence, to provide screening from the adjacent properties to the rear, as well as located to the north of this property. It's important for me to point out at the beginning here that the applicant, in addition to owning 82 Pine Street, also owns the adjacent property to the south, which is 80 Pine Street. 80 Pine Street is a similar sized lot. The width is, I think, even narrower than 82 Pine Street. That property contains a 6-family building in the front and a 2-family building actually in the rear of the property. Those 2 lots have historically shared the driveway that's between the 2 buildings adjacent to Pine Street. They've essentially shared the rear parking lot, even though each property has parking on for each of the 2 separate lots. The entire rear is paved, which allows for appropriate backup space and aisle width to serve both of the properties. They also share a shed that's used as a trash enclosure, and we propose to continue all of those shared arrangements. And we're prepared to memorialize those with formal easements, which don't currently exist. There's no easements currently in place today. But if this application were to be approved, we would file the appropriate easements memorializing what's historically been the case as far as the sharing of the parking areas and driveway and the trash enclosure. In addition to the site plan approval, we do require a few variances. Some relate to existing conditions, which will be discussed by our witnesses. And as far as witnesses are concerned, I have two to present this evening. Sitting to my right is Nicholas Colello from Sionis Architecture, who will discuss the site plan and the architectural drawings submitted with the application. And our second witness will be William Stimmel, who's a professional planner, who will provide testimony in support of the I think 3 variances and 2 site plan waivers that we're seeking. I should also note that my client is in attendance and obviously available to answer any questions that might arise in the course of the hearing tonight. So, that's okay. Unless the board has any preliminary questions for me, I would call my first witness, Nicholas Colello.
Just had a quick clarification. You said 10 parking spaces, 1 electric, and the documentation I have says 9 parking spaces, 2 electric.
Is it 2 or
There's 9 spaces provided with 2 electric.
2 electric? My bad.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sir, do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Would you please state your full name and business affiliation for the record?
Nicholas Colello with Sionis Architecture, 8 Hillside Avenue, Montclair.
Before we get into testimony, Mr. Sibilia, do we have exhibits to mark?
We were given a presentation that you all will be giving tonight, which will be, I guess, Exhibit 1.
Do we have, usually there's a list of, let's say, the application.
Oh, you don't have that.
We do not have that. I don't have it in the project file.
Would you like to start, Mr. Nason?
I mean, A1 is the application. dated
And is your microphone on? That's my job.
A1 is the application dated May 17, 2022, and filed on May 18, 2022. A2 is the affidavit of taxes paid. A3 is a proof of publication. A4 is the affidavit of service. And the following exhibits are not in any order other than the fact that I just put them in this order. A5 is a plan set prepared by Sionis Architecture, consisting of 13 sheets. Those are dated 2022-5-10, May 10th, and last revised September 1, 2022. A6 is a stormwater management report prepared by, no, that's not it, sorry. A6 is the planning report prepared by Ms. Talley, dated September 6, 2022. A7 is the engineering report of the board engineer, Boswell Engineering. A8 is the report of the Montclair Historic Preservation Commission, and I'm made to understand that A9 will be the DRC report.
And just for clarification, the board engineer report, was that the September 7th, 2022 report?
Yes, I apologize. I should have said that.
We also received an Alta survey. We also received a survey. If we can mark that.
Yes, and that's dated through 6/13/22.
6/13/22 is the date on the survey.
So,
Revision date.
Revision date.
The original date is 11/1/2018.
Do we need to get you a microphone? Do you have one over there or no? Okay.
I could try to talk louder.
No, you'll need the microphone, so we'll either have to give you the handheld for now. Oh,
Oh, here it
I
comes.
think. Exactly. Thank you. We'll give you the handheld for now, Ms. Tobieri. Or, I think that's it for the exhibits, right?
To my knowledge, that's all I think I have.
Okay. Mr. Trembulack.
Okay, Nicholas, you're employed by Cyrus Architecture?
Correct.
How long have you worked there?
Since 2018.
Okay. Would you just provide your educational background and professional qualifications for the board?
Sure. I received my Bachelor of Architecture from Carnegie Mellon University in 2001, and since then I've been practicing in the field. I obtained my license in 2007, and as stated, I've been working with Cyrus Architecture since 2018.
Is your license currently in effect and in good standing?
Yes.
Okay. And did you assist in the preparation of the plans that have been submitted to the board?
Yes.
Okay. By the way, will the board accept his qualifications as a
Have you
architect?
testified before?
Oh, I
Other
should've
planning
said that.
boards?
Not in front of the planning board. No.
Other municipalities?
Yeah, I was at the Bloomfield HPC. I sit on the Glenridge HPC, and I presented this application to the Montclair DRC and the HPC.
Okay, we'll accept them.
Thank you very much.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Tremblay, you'll be testifying in, as an expert in
Architecture.
just architecture?
Right.
Thank you.
So Nicholas, you indicated that you were involved in the preparation of the site plan and the architectural plans that have been submitted in support of this application.
Yes.
Okay, you worked with Paul Sionis on those?
Yes.
I assume under his supervision?
Yes.
Okay. And have you prepared a PowerPoint presentation to assist in your discussion of the plans with the board this evening, similar to what Paul has done in numerous other applications?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Can we mark that? I think you have that, right, Tommy? And it's on the screen. Should that be A11? All right, Nicholas, why don't you take the board through the plans utilizing the PowerPoint, and you
Sure.
probably need to, you know,
How many slides are in this PowerPoint?
14?
14.
14.
Thank you.
All right.
do you want to do that from here, or do you want
I could do
to,
it.
whatever you're more comfortable?
So 82 Pine Street, Montclair, New Jersey, lot 29 in block 4208. It's located in the Pine Street Historic District, as was noted. It's approximately 40 feet by 200 feet, rectangular shaped lot. It's 0.18 acres, or 7,967 square feet. It's located on the west side of Pine Street, 215.82 feet north of Glenridge Avenue. And the lot slopes about 7 feet from the east, which is the front, to the west. The lot is primarily covered with asphalt paving, as you can see in the site photos on the next slides, and plus the existing two-story building and the one-story garage towards the rear of the site. Here's an aerial view of the site. And what I like about this view is that you can see how the existing two-story building compares with the three-story buildings adjacent to the site and predominantly along Pine Street.
Is it fair to say that most of the buildings on, on this block of Pine Street are three-story buildings?
Correct. There's some two-story buildings that are closer to Glenridge Avenue, but predominantly it's three-story buildings.
Okay.
And if anyone in the audience is having trouble seeing it, you're welcome to come sit right up front if you're comfortable with that.
Here's a street view of the site where you see the existing two-story wood frame building as viewed from Pine Street. As was mentioned, it's located in the Pine Street Historic District and within the R4 three-story apartment zone. To the south is the three-story multifamily apartment with the shared driveway that was mentioned. It's over here. And to the north is another three-story multifamily apartment building.
And 80 Pine Street is the property that I mentioned that's owned by the applicant, correct?
Yes.
80 and 82 are both owned by the same applicant, same party, which is the applicant in this proceeding, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Here are some photos of the site. You can see the front facade, which is brick, and the sides and the rear are vinyl siding existing. Between the properties, there's a curbed barrier, and this is the only landscaping on site. Here's a photo on the bottom left of the existing garage, one-story garage in the rear of the site. This is the two-family dwelling at the rear of 80 Pine Street. The bottom middle photo is of the shared trash and recycling enclosure that's currently shared by both properties, and we wish to continue share with the 3 additional units. And this photo shows trees that are behind the garage that we're going to keep as a barrier, a visual barrier between the single-family residential property to the west. Here's the photo from the nomination report, and it's listed as a contributing building. The construction date was not listed on the nomination report, but according to township records, it was constructed in 1907, and we were unable to locate any older historic photos. But from the existing photos, you can see that there were larger openings on both the first and the second floor that were infilled with brick at some point.
So now you're going to talk about what is being proposed for the property, correct?
Yes.
This is slide 6 of the PowerPoint.
So you can see the applicant's goal is to demolish the rear garage and build a new 3-story addition to the existing 2-story building, improve the appearance of the existing building, and add much-needed landscaping to the site. The addition will have 3 new dwelling units for a total of 5 dwelling units, which meet the density for the lot. The proposed addition will be connected to the existing building through a 1-story roof structure to maintain one principal building on the site. All parking spaces were moved to the rear behind the addition. As noted, the required amount is 10 parking stalls. We're proposing 9 with the credit for the 2 EV ready parking stalls. On the south side of the site is the shared driveway between the 2 buildings. And the existing trash and recycling shed is located here. It's currently 124 square feet. And as I said, it's currently used by both sites, and we propose to continue to do so. There's landscaping along the west and the north facade, along the southern face of the addition, along a portion of the north addition, and between the 2 existing and the proposed.
Before you go on, well, it's shown on both plans, but I just had a couple of questions. What is the width of the existing shared driveway?
The existing shared driveway is 14 feet.
Okay, and you're proposing to reduce that to 10 feet, correct?
Correct. 10 feet, a portion of which extends onto the adjacent property to the south.
Right, the driveway is mostly located on this property, but a portion of it is located on 80 Pine Street, right?
Correct.
But the total width is currently 14 feet, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you're proposing to reduce the width to 10 feet, and is that in order to provide a sidewalk, which was recommended by the Development Review Committee?
That's correct.
Okay. Can you identify where that sidewalk is?
Yes. It's along the southern face of the existing building, and
Mhm.
it's connected to the connection piece between the 2 buildings as access.
Okay, while we're looking at that, the board engineer made reference to a pinch point in the sidewalk. Can you discuss that and perhaps respond to the engineer's comment?
Yes, of course. So typically the sidewalk, we have at least 36 inches. at the chimney, it's reduced down to 32 inches, which is allowed because the chimney is only 16 inches wide. So we feel that that pinch point still maintains accessible access to the sidewalk from the connection between the building.
Okay.
What about for ADA?
That's what I'm referring to. It's the 36-inch width is able to be reduced as long as
The
it's
length
less than
isn't.
24
Yes.
inches, right?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
So this site, this slide addresses the access to the addition. And there's a few things to note. The first floor of the addition is an accessible unit. So the main entry is at the rear of the building, which is adjacent to the ADA parking space and the access aisle. We are also providing an accessible path from the sidewalk to the connector piece, which when we get to the floor plans and future slides, we could discuss a little bit more about. And then this slide, once again, shows the shared driveway between the two buildings and the landscaping around the addition.
Okay. I think actually on the prior slide, Nicholas, if you could go back, you have some dimensions there. I mean, the parking spaces that are shown, the 9 parking spaces, those comply with the dimensional requirements of the zoning ordinance?
Yes, they do.
Okay. And I think your plan calculates an aisle width from the end of the parking spaces to the property line of 16 feet, right?
That's correct.
And the requirement for a parking aisle width is 24 feet, correct?
Correct.
Okay. But you also show, well, here, let me ask you this question. Is there anything separating the 2 parking areas for the 2 properties, or is it just one continuous paved area in the rear?
It's one continuous paved area, so the distance from the edge of the parking on 82 Pine Street to 82 Pine Street is 32.17 feet.
Okay. So there's effectively a 32-foot parking aisle, although only 16 feet of it is on this property, and the other 16 feet is on 80 Pine Street.
Correct.
Okay. But that is technically a waiver because we only have 16 feet on this property, although cars have utilized that to back in and out and maneuver in and out of the driveway, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Did you mention the landscaping?
That was about,
Okay.
this slide is the landscape plan.
Okay.
All plantings will be native to New Jersey. The existing trees behind the garage are to remain to screen the parking area from the single-family residential property to the west. There will be evergreen plantings along the north to screen the parking area, and plantings along the south side of the addition as a buffer from both pedestrians and vehicles, and additional planting at the connector between the 2 buildings. There was a question in the engineer's report about the mulch area over here, and that was provided just for pedestrian access to get to the northern strip of landscaping that we have to the addition.
Okay.
There was also another question about the pervious surface, which we have the breakdown, and we could supply that. But basically, this section of landscaping to the west and the north of the parking is 444 square feet. The area to the north of the addition is 136 square feet. To the south of the addition is 222 square feet. And between the buildings is 79 square feet for a total of 881 square feet, which brings the pervious surface to 11 square feet.
Did you mention, if you did, I apologize, the new fencing that's proposed as
Sorry,
part of the
those,
application?
you said 11%? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
The current calculation was at 1%.
Okay.
Yeah. There will be a new wood bordering board fence along the west and the northern property, and at the northern site, we'll set it back from the curb.
Okay.
Lighting?
Okay. Before you go on to lighting, let's just talk about the trash enclosure that is currently shared between these two properties, and the proposal is to continue to share that shed as a trash enclosure, correct?
Correct.
And what is the size of that enclosure?
It's
or
124 square feet.
structure? Okay, and is that adequate in size to accommodate the three additional proposed apartment units?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So I have a question.
Yeah,
Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
Oh, I have a question about the shed. How far is that away from the property line?
I can get the survey next.
It looks like it's along the property line wraps around, so it looks like it's right on the edge of the northern.
On the property line.
Yeah.
I'm just suggesting that the ordinance calls for a shed to be 6 feet away from the property line. So since you're submitting this application, you might want to also ask for a variance so that your shed aligns with our ordinance. So that, you know, the application is completely understood.
I mean, it's an existing structure. We're
Yeah,
not
I know.
changing it in any way, but
Since you're
wouldn't
going
mind
through
having
this,
the
yeah.
variance, so, okay.
Just to follow up on that, would that be a variance for both properties? How does that work?
Well, we only have one application for us, so.
Okay.
Includes the shed, a use of the sheds.
Is it on your property?
It looks like it's,
It's on the other property?
To the south.
well, according to
So
the
it's not
survey, it
even on your
appears,
property.
on the survey, it appears to be on both properties. If I'm looking at this correctly.
Yeah, I didn't have the survey, so.
Well, it would actually be the residential property to the west.
You mean the two-family house there?
No, the
Oh, yeah.
single-family, because-
Actually, you're right, it would be on lot 5.
Yeah.
So,
So then, if there's only one property in the application, I don't think we can grant a variance for 2 other properties not part of the application.
It's actually, it's on the adjacent lot 29, lot 30.
Right, lot 30 and lot 5, it looks like.
Huh?
Because it extends.
This is not this application.
Yeah, that little
There's a
sliver.
small encroachment. Right. But again, it's an existing structure, and we're just proposing to continue to utilize it as it has been utilized.
yeah, I mean, I was just raising it so that your
Yeah.
application would be technically correct in all aspects if you were, you know, but now that
Yeah, but
we
that
see
doesn't
it's not
even-
on the property.
It's not even on our property.
Oh, okay. There
on-
you go.
Well, the,
After this witness finishes his testimony, then it's time for the public, if they have questions about
Yeah.
this witness's testimony.
After this,
And-
well.
After this
could-
witness about their testimony, and then after all the witnesses, then the public is invited to make comments on the application as a whole, whatever you want to say at that point about the application.
So write your questions down.
so before you go on, who monitors and who maintains the trash enclosure?
I would-
The property owner. I don't know if is there a manager?
Yeah, we have a super that comes and takes the garbage out to the curb.
Do we need him sworn in, Mr. Neese?
For those words, no.
Okay.
There might be more.
I was gonna say, in case we continue on.
Should have a mic and people should be able to hear him on the record, that's all.
Okay. Nick, did you want to talk about the lighting?
Yes. So here's a lighting plan. We have wall sconces along the exterior of the building to light the path along the sidewalk. And you have 2 light poles for the parking area. I know along the southern property line, there's some locations where the light levels is above the 0.3 minimum, but within the width of the driveway, we have to contend with both providing adequate lighting along the walkway and the low level at the property line. So we leaned more towards the pedestrian safety with levels slightly over the allowable at the property line. And I think the highest along the property line itself is at 0.5, and the resolution has 0.3 maximum.
But that's only in the driveway area between the two buildings that exceeds the .03.
Correct.
And that lighting currently
0.
doesn't exist, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Those are proposed lights.
Yeah.
Because we added the sidewalk, we wanted to
Right.
make sure that there was a sufficient lighting.
Right, are there windows on the other building on 80
There are
Pine?
2 windows along that facade.
No, I'm just concerned about lighting
Right, of course.
impacting neighbors, of course, but,
And, I mean, we went through a few iterations with the lighting consultant to try and to meet both characteristics, and this was the best outcome, like I said, given it was slightly over along the property line. And the light levels will be a little bit less, actually at the face of the building.
But otherwise, the lighting plan complies with the requirements of the site plan ordinance?
Yes.
Okay.
And it addresses the DRC's comments about dark spots. There used to be bollards along the rear, and they got removed with the addition of the light poles.
how high are the light poles?
12 feet.
And they're not impacting the neighbors on either side?
No,
They're
there's a
not?
shield,
Okay.
and you can see the level of output. So here's the first floor plan. I want to note that the addition does not affect the layout of the existing 2-story, 2-dwelling building. The addition consists of 3 new dwelling units, 1 per floor, and the unit 3 located on the first floor of the addition is an accessible dwelling unit. It's 1,098 square feet, and it consists of 2 bedrooms, primary and secondary bathrooms, and a laundry closet. And as discussed, the main entrance is on the rear, and we have an entrance to the stairway at the connection between the 2 buildings. And within that stairway, we have a door that leads to the primary bedroom as an easier means of just getting to the sidewalk.
Does the design of that apartment, which is intended to be accessible, comply with the requirements for accessibility?
Yes, it does.
Idea? Okay.
Here's the second and the third floor plans, and units 4 and 5, they're 1,119 square feet, and they also consist of 2 bedrooms, a primary and a secondary bathroom, and a laundry closet.
I just have a question. Is there a benefit to the property owner to build accessory dwelling unit there, or whatever, an accessory unit?
It's a requirement since there's 5 units.
Oh, it's a requirement?
Yes.
Oh, I see. Oh, thank you.
Here's the streetscape of the building, of the site, with our proposed east elevation of the existing building. And some of part of the scope of the work is improvements to the existing building street facade. So it's going to have a new door and transom, new light fixtures, new second-story windows that are more in proportion with the existing windows along the side facades and as well as the addition. Removal of the existing composition tile awning at the front and replacing with a new standing seam metal roof, which that material is also shown in the addition and helps tie the 2 buildings together. And at the second floor setback, there's going to be a new flashing and trim at the building. in the streetscape, you can see the height of the addition, which is comparable to the adjacent buildings. And the addition is set back 46 feet from the property line. And you can see there's a new signage in the transom, and which you'll also see on the other exterior elevations. And the exterior signage schedule was on sheet SD 104 that was included in the package.
And what color is the addition that you can see from the street?
Let me just get to the next slide.
Oh, I'm sorry,
See that?
okay.
Yep. So here are rendered elevations of the addition, the north and the south elevation. And regarding the color, the addition, we are proposing to have colors based on the color trend for exterior colors of oat milk whites, and the facade allows color variety due to comparable colors for trim, roof, and accent colors. Regarding the existing building, the clapboard siding will be painted a dark color to go with the brick on the front facade. One of the HPC comments was to consider the colors for the project, and we feel that having two different color schemes helps separate visually the addition versus the existing, which is typically what HPC directs us to do. And if the building was all the same color, I think the proportions would be a little warped. It would just look like a very long, narrow building. And just getting back to some of the proposed improvements, at the existing building, we were going to take down the vinyl siding and the asbestos shingles, and we expect there to be wood clapboard behind it, which will be replaced or repaired as needed and painted. And then for the addition, we're calling for a wood composite clapboard. And there's also a box bay window on both the north and the south facades. And on top of the box bay is the metal standing seam roof, which is also at the connection between the two buildings.
Is the box bay clapboard or hardy board?
It'll be
or
a metal finish.
It's metal that matches the strip across the front kind of thing?
Similar, yes.
Nicholas, what's shown on the roof there at the top of
Yes.
that page?
You can see the three AC units on top, and they have a mechanical screen around them.
Okay, so all the AC units will be on the rooftop,
Correct.
and they'll all be screened as required by the ordinance?
Yes.
Okay.
And at the front of the building, there's another railing, which is where the roof hatch is to the roof, so it's a safety railing for that. And as discussed with the HPC, the north elevation is actually going to be the most visible because it's seen from across the Mount Carmel parking lot.
The entrance to the new apartments, are they through the front on Pine Street? Everybody enters? There's
No,
no entrance on the side?
The entrance to the two existing building
Yeah.
units remain at Pine Street.
Right,
Then the entrance to the upper two floors is through this connection piece
okay.
between the two buildings.
Mhm.
And then the entrance to the first floor unit is at the rear.
Okay. Is there an elevator, or it's all stairs?
There's no elevator, stairs.
It's all stairs, okay. And the HVAC system that's on the roof, I guess that the new apartments will have central air conditioning?
Yes.
Will the older apartments have that as well?
No.
Not everyone's
No.
getting central air?
Correct.
Okay.
Here's the last slide. I just want to mention a typo. The proposed west elevation, this is actually of the existing building. So the rear of the existing building. And this is the west elevation of the addition. So this is the main entrance to that first floor unit. And here's the east elevation of the addition, which is opposite this one. So if there's any questions.
Just a couple of, maybe one or two follow-ups. You mentioned signage. Is there any signage proposed other than the building, the number of the street?
No, but we do have the same signage at each of the entries calling out the units.
Okay.
Where's the mailbox?
On, there's let me go back to the site plan one moment. There's an existing mailbox in front of, it's a multi,
Oh, I see.
slide, so, and there's enough, slots for the 3 new
Okay.
units.
I think you have a picture of that in the full site plan that was
Correct.
submitted. That's again shared between the 2 buildings.
Yes,
And it will continue to be shared, and there's room for 3 additional
yes, there is.
residents mail. Okay. Okay, you did mention the HPC report, and you responded to that. Okay, I think that's all the questions I have for Mr. Colello.
Questions from the board?
Well, there's one question that I'd like to have, oh, I'm sorry. It would seem that the variances that you are asking for really depend on the fact that 80 and 82 are owned by the same person. Is there any intent to move ahead with that as a condition of getting this done? Because without the ownership, the variances don't operate effectively. Is the easement going to be a part of the process of putting through the application?
Yes, I mean, there's going to be 3, perhaps a total of 4 easements, actually. You know, one, it would be to confirm the shared use of the driveway. Another would be to confirm the right of 82 Pine Street, this property, to utilize the trash, the shed/trash enclosure on the adjacent property. There'll be a sort of a blanket cross easement to allow both properties to utilize the blacktop driveway for purposes of backing up and either entering or exiting the site. There's also another variance that was mentioned in the DRC memo, and I think it was probably also in the board engineer's report. The survey shows a sewer line on a portion of the property. We believe it's a township sewer line. It doesn't seem to extend all the way. There's no easement, which is not unusual for a lot of sewer lines throughout the township. But the applicant is agreeable to providing whatever easement the township would require for purposes of extending, make sure that there's a right for that sewer line, which is currently in the rear of the property near the existing garage, for that to extend all the way out to Pine Street. We believe it's probably there, but there's no easement. And, you know, we would have no problem formalizing that and providing an easement to the town so that that sewer line would not be affected, since it serves.
How do you know it's a township sewer line?
I don't think we'd know for sure. We assumed it was.
There's no piping information, and that could help if the township has any sanitary and storm sewer maps. If it's an 8-inch, it's highly likely a main, and then you can see if there's all the laterals going to it. But yes, we would need an easement once we find the piping. Once the piping is surveyed and mapped, then the easement can be established with bearing and distance, and we're recommending a 10-foot width, 5 foot on either side of the line. So this way it can be, maintained and accessed. So there's still information for that line that's needed, but they are willing to provide an easement, which we should implement so we can service the line.
And will the applicant be doing the surveying of that sewer line?
Well, I don't think we're planning to. It's not our sewer line. It's the towns or some other, parties, and, it should remain, and we want to provide the legal right for that line to continue and to extend all the way out to Pine Street, where I assume it connects to the main.
But it traverses your property?
Right.
I don't know how I'm going to get to the bottom of that and figure that out, so that if it's somebody else's or the township's, or, I don't know how that's going to work itself out.
I'm not sure how we determine that. There's no easements recorded on this property.
So,
It was picked up on the survey.
yeah, Marisa, what would you suggest in terms of addressing this? Because if it's somebody else's, if it's a private, another property's easement, but it doesn't sound that way to me. I just don't know what to do with this.
Well, the line needs to be surveyed, so we can see where it is and where it's connecting. And then if there's any old maps that the township may have in the Department of Public Works, for sanitary, the township system, that can be a confirming, document.
Well, I get that, but I'm getting the sense that Mr. Trembulac is resisting,
Yes, I'm
having the
getting that sense,
You get that too,
Well, again, it's not our line.
but it's on your property, so,
Well, it is noted on the survey. I mean, it shows a manhole, it shows an 8-inch line,
Right.
and it shows 3 pipes leading into it that say service may be for others. So there is information in terms of where it's located on the survey that is provided. And I think all you have to do is match that up to see what the town has. It's not that hard.
Part of my question relates to the fact that my understanding is that all the variances that we have go with the property and not with the owner. And I was wondering, I presume the easement's the same? Because
easement, yeah.
Yeah, because if the owner decides to sell the property, we want to be sure that all these things that will still be in place, so.
so I guess,
There would be permanent easements in perpetuity.
in perpetuity.
Recorded in the county
That answers that question.
to,
So it'll
to
be,
really address that concern. So that if
Okay.
either property is sold, they would be sold subject to the easements, which would remain
Okay.
forever.
Can you talk a little bit about how stormwater is managed on the property currently and how it will be managed once if there is an addition, once
Sure.
there's an addition?
Yes, so currently, the water, the sheet flows from the rear of the site down the driveway to the front. With the addition, we were still proposing to maintain that. I know, in the engineer's report, it said that there was concern about ponding at this location. So we'll have a civil engineer look at that and provide that additional information in terms of top curb and bottom curb information that was requested in the engineer's report.
Something that would be acceptable to our engineer's review and approval?
Right.
Yes, we would agree to that.
I think it's also important to point out that they are reducing the impervious substantially. So the flow and the quantity of water releasing down through the parking lot, down the road, the driveway into the roadway is gonna be a lower flow than what is currently there. They're adding all that impervious area, which will help.
And is there some new leader on the existing building that discharges into the landscaped area?
Correct,
Okay, so that doesn't discharge onto the sidewalk?
correct.
Okay.
And I should note that I think we addressed a number of the comments in the engineer's report, but the applicant would agree to comply with all the other comments and recommendations in that report.
Are you planning on painting the board-on-board fence?
No, I believe we were just gonna have it be the natural wood.
Natural wood, okay. And then, in terms of pedestrian safety, like I get a little bit concerned that it's a very narrow driveway and cars, can tend to come out in and out very quickly. Is there any sort of pedestrian safety or warning systems you've considered?
Yeah, we do have, we were proposing a sign that's shown on the exterior signage schedule about noting to drivers that there is a pedestrian path along the driveway to help improve the safety with regards to that.
But what about people walking on the public sidewalk? Is there anything that's going to tell them a car is about to come out?
We have not discussed that.
Is that something you'd consider?
Yeah, I think so, if that's a requirement from the board.
I just think something, like visual. I'm not saying put a warbling siren, because I think that would be ridiculous. But just something that would let people know, whether it's a flashing light or something not too in your face, but just something so that people have an idea that there's a car about to exit and they can
Sure.
take appropriate action. Yeah, look up from their cell phones. There's other places in town that have put lights in the sidewalk.
Yes.
That seems to work well. And in terms of illumination, are there lights on the front of the property? I think you mentioned that you were going to replace them.
Yeah, there's an existing light, so we're gonna replace it and provide 2 new light fixtures on either side of the doors.
Okay.
Small, but there are there on either side.
Okay. And how much illumination do you need in the parking area?
For pedestrian walkway, it's a minimum 0.5 and a maximum 2-foot candles.
And are there lights on the adjoining property that are present in their parking area?
I'm not certain, and I would have to go back to the photos on the site to see those locations.
Because it looks to me like there's not enough lighting in certain parts of the property's parking area, which, theoretically, people, especially if they park in spot 9, are going to be exiting into areas that are less than 0.5-foot candles. Spot 9 is all the way to the rear.
On the other hand, there's houses right there. And from the
I'm not
Clover
saying
Hill,
some
yeah.
big, huge light would be necessary, but perhaps even like bollard lights along the very
Something.
back that are shielded by the fence.
Yeah. At one point, we did have bollards back there, but we can look at them again.
Well, it's just, I mean, if
No.
somebody's walking behind spot 9, and that's why I was trying to go with,
I understand, that's a valid point.
if there are lights from the adjoining property,
Yeah.
that might be helpful, because then you've got the lights from that property with the lights from your property that would help and combine. But that does kind of concern me at the end there.
Like, what lighting is on that 2-family house that's in the back? That would add something.
Right?
Right. I mean, I assume there is some lighting there, but it's pretty set back from where those parking spaces are. Like, I'm not sure how much lighting from here will improve that section. So we'll look at a bollard.
I think those are all my questions. Other questions from the board?
Just a request that I see that you have a paper copy of the PowerPoint that you've been, can you please submit a copy of that to the planning department for the file?
Sure.
And if you have that electronically, if you could send that to me, I would be grateful.
I have a question.
Mr. Berry?
Any consideration for kind of revamping or the shed, the recycle structure? Something?
We have not discussed that within the scope of the project.
Yeah, would the applicant be agreeable to discussing that?
What-
What, you thinking like a coat of paint?
Yeah.
Something.
Something?
Paint would be fine.
I mean, it's
I mean-
gonna be really beautiful and, just a
It's,
suggestion.
Do I need to make a coat of paint a condition of approval if it comes through?
Possibly.
Needs a little sprucing up.
A little
It's-
and to tie in, with this, a little better.
been told it was just painted recently.
So the photos we have are from before painting? Just to confirm.
No, that's freshly, that's freshly painted.
As shown in the
That's in the
PowerPoint.
picture.
And that's the picture from,
It's on page 4 of the PowerPoint.
And it's also in the package that you received of the site photos.
So it's currently blue, the
Right,
the bright blue?
right.
Oh, it's gray?
Every condition, it was still the.
yeah.
Yeah,
Looks better than most trash enclosures, I would think.
that shed. Mhm.
Oh, here it is, it's great.
Oh, it's, oh, it looks more gray? Oh, here,
It's all the way back there.
Are those recycling containers in front of the shed? Is that where the recycling goes, those blue?
Figure 8.
Yes, figure 8.
Is that of the planner's memo?
It's in this, what we got in our packets? It's, yes, the planner's memo, yep.
Let's take a look.
Oh,
On the-
no,
Oh.
that's the opposite, that's a property to the north, looking
Oh,
along the
okay. Okay.
garage.
Front of the bird bath. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Questions from the public about this witness's testimony? Step right up to the lectern. Ms. Tiberi, would you mind, or Mr. Sebelia, somebody putting the microphone back up on the lectern, please? Hi.
My name is Lois Thompson.
He'll just turn it on.
Okay, thank you. My name is Lois Thompson. I'm at 31 Grant Street, and I had a couple questions regarding, I saw the new information that was posted in the, I think it's under your site. The gentleman, and I apologize, I forgot all the names. The gentleman there said that there were 9 spaces plus 2, or of the 9 are the 2, the EV
There's
spots?
9 spaces plus 2 EV
Okay.
No.
stations.
There's nine,
There's
there's
nine.
9 spaces total, 2 of those spaces
Are
include EV.
Okay, because that was what was said earlier, so that's why I was confirming. Where is it on this?
There's,
On here.
one over here
Okay.
and one over here.
What are
Oh,
those
that-
space
that are going to
numbers?
be- Let me just check the plan. It's between spaces 1 and 2, and between spaces,
Because one is a handicap, it says on here.
Correct.
So the handicap will have the EV? Or does it work for
The-
either one?
Yeah, the EV station
Uh-huh.
will be accessed by the 2 spaces, so it goes in
Okay,
between.
okay.
And part of the requirement for the accessible is that one has to be accessible for the accessible space.
Okay, and what was the
So
other?
there's one located there, and the
Mhm.
other one is,
Okay, it looks like between 6 and 7? Am I seeing this right?
that might be the light pole.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, I guess it is in front of the light, yes, between 6 and 7.
Okay. All right, so we're, just to make sure, we have 9 spaces with the new,
Correct.
what's currently there now? How many spaces?
Currently, there's 9.
There is 9,
Yes.
okay. I live on Grant. Grant, I don't know if any of you go on Pine Street in the morning, really any time of day. It's not that, it's two-way traffic on Pine Street. Gets congested, and and especially in inclement weather, it's really bad. And my concern is, you're adding,
So this is the time for questions of the
Oh, okay.
witness, but later on, after all their witnesses, you're welcome to come
No.
up and provide all the comments.
perfect. But 10 feet will be the size of the driveway?
Correct.
Once you put in the sidewalk?
Yes,
Okay. And this is two-way traffic, correct?
it is. Currently, the existing condition is two-way traffic.
Okay.
And it's narrower than what's
required?
required, yes.
Okay, so for
It's gonna be
safety
built new.
reason and so forth,
Right.
10 feet is, okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So since you brought up EV stations, does one charger charge 2 cars?
Correct.
Oh, okay, thanks. 4 cars could potentially be
well-
charged.
One station can be accessed from 2 cars, I guess depending on the type of
Oh, charger.
charger.
It may only
could
be
ac-
one.
Right, it might,
Oh.
but, so there's either
Okay.
2 or 4.
So, just a note, number 4 on this site plan slide has a total number of 1 EV-ready parking stall is stated.
It's called out, the note on the site plan says electric vehicle charging station, typical 2, so only one of them is called out, but there's actually 2 of them.
Okay, just wanted to.
Yes.
And are we requiring fast chargers now? Or they could be the slow chargers? You know, there's different, 20 minutes or 12 hours, whatever, so we don't have a requirement in our ordinance about what kind they have to be? No?
Do you know what kind you're planning on installing?
We have not gotten that far yet.
Will they at least be level 2?
Yes.
Thank you. That's what I was hoping to hear. I mean, EV fast chargers would be great, but I think level 2 is what we've been requiring elsewhere. I mean, level 1, I believe, is just 120 volts, whereas level 2, I think, is 240, or Mr. Neiman looks like he knows this better than I do.
I know level 1 is just a house. Level 1's just a household outlet for all intents and purposes. That's the extent of my knowledge.
I think level 2 is either 240 or 480, but I'd have to double check that. Oh, yes. Other questions from the public?
Thank you. Not that it isn't fascinating to hear about the chargers. I think it's still
Yes,
on.
it's on.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Anne Marie Nazaro, and I live at 11 Clover Hill Place, Montclair. And at the last day of this month, I will celebrate 39 years in Montclair, in that house, actually. So you gave a nice description, kind of nice, Nicholas, when you said that at the west side of the property, that behind what is a garage now, there will be fencing, and you showed some kind of sparse-looking, straggly trees that are there, and you said you would like to keep that as a shield, I guess, for the Clover Hill, number 9 Clover Hill Place, the single-family home right behind the trees and your fencing, and the new proposal and the current property. So I want to be clear that I'm here as a member and co-chair of the Neighborhood Association for Clover Hill and Grove Terrace. And we are very interested in everything that's going to happen there. So I do want to hear a lot more about what you propose to do there. That is a single-family home. They have 2 small children, and for that reason couldn't be here tonight, but I have a statement to speak for them later. But so one question is, I'd like to hear more about that. And another one is, it feels a little bit when you get this letter and you have to pick it up at the post office certified, you get the letter and it starts to feel as you read through it like strangulation by variances. And I come here this evening and that feeling is not dispelled, even when you talk about a shed, a simple shed that exists, and it houses the
Is this
refuse.
But is this a question?
Certainly is, yes,
Okay.
because they brought up the shed and I want to talk about it. When you mentioned that, you only talked about, can it accommodate, good question, can it accommodate the 3 new proposed units? You said, yes, it will. Another question is, well, it's already not complying. It needs to be 6 feet, as was pointed out by Carmel Lockman, and there's no mention. Why not reverse all these requests for variance so you can keep it where it is not properly? Why not move it where it should be? And again, remember, I'm on the west side of the fencing and the scraggly trees, so I can see that pretty clearly. If you could move it a little, that would improve our line of sight, certainly. So consider that, not just a coat of paint on it. Is that a question? Was that a question? Yes. Can you consider coming into compliance on that and moving it, not just painting it? And then the other one was just to hear more about the scraggly trees and the shield. And I also want to just make a statement that questions don't mean I'm buying in.
But this is you're right. This
Okay.
is the time for questions.
Yes, that's it for questions.
So the question, just so we understand it, is more information regarding what's going to be at the rear of the property.
At the rear of the property. And along with aesthetics, well, you know, architects are big on light. Well, light, there's also the factor of noise. I mean, noise is going to be different with more units. Light's going to be different because of the height, but I can say that later. You can answer the question so far.
Sure.
If you have, do you have enough of the sense of my question?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
So at the rear of the site, as mentioned, the existing trees are going to remain, but additionally, we're also going to have a wood fence that goes along the property line, and it'll be 6 foot high. So that'll help, and it's a board on board, so you won't be able to see through it.
And that's along the rear of the property and also the north side of the property?
Correct. And then regarding the shed,
Can you change the trees at all, the shrubs? You said
those are existing trees. We're going to add some more plantings, but those are lower down, yes.
so we would see them, they'll be on the Pine Street side.
Correct. The new fence is going to be along the property line. And there's an existing fence that starts on the single-family residential and then crosses over, so we have to demolish the portion that crosses over onto our property and then install a new fence along the property line. Regarding the shed is on the adjacent property and currently is not part of the application, so we did not include it in the scope, even though we're utilizing what its function is.
But adjacent means the same owner?
Coincident is the same owner, yes.
So then that could be moved to the same owner, no?
Well, it obviously could be moved, okay, but it's been there. We're not changing the use of it in any way. It's been utilized, I don't know for how long a period of time, but for some time it's been utilized, you know, as a trash enclosure, and we're proposing to continue to utilize it as a trash enclosure. We're just adding, you know, for 3 additional dwelling units. But it's there, it's always been there. I don't see why it should be required to be moved. It's not adjacent to your property, is it?
Can you please come back up if you're going to
Yeah.
speak?
So another question.
Could you just, you live at 11 Clover Hill.
If
Can
I
you
seem
just
overly concerned, I hear in this meeting tonight the term in perpetuity. Now, with climate warming, we might not have a long perpetuity, but that phrase scares me. So yes, I would like to hear these things addressed. And I don't think that shed's been part of that for decades. I think it's a more recent addition.
Where,
I'm number 11.
Okay,
So
so-
number
So this
9,
is right behind. You.
right behind is 9. I'm to the right.
Okay, so like around here.
Can I
Sorry,
go?
this is-
Yeah,
so you
I
could
gotta
go
go
closer.
closer, maybe I can see it. Yeah, I'm to the right of number 9, which is dead behind you.
Okay.
So number 9 is lot 5? Is that correct? I'm asking the architect. Is that, number 9 is lot 5, shown on the survey?
Number
Does it
9
say that?
Clover Hill?
Yeah, number 9 Clover Hill.
yes.
And so this member of the public is one house to the north, which presumably, though not on the survey,
No,
Do you have it?
right
would be
behind
lot
Clover-
6.
Yeah. This is your,
Here's Clover Hill 9,
That's right.
and I'm oh, no, that doesn't
That's
mean
the
9.
lot
That's
number.
That's the lot number,
Oh,
yeah.
sorry. Yeah, so I'm.
you're not
number
directly
11.
behind this property, you're,
I'm right next door to the, directly behind.
Okay.
right.
So it'd be lot
Directly behind
5.
is 9, I'm 11.
Mhm.
Number 7 is here tonight.
So you're, just in terms of the shed that you're concerned about, you're 2 houses away from that, isn't that correct?
Although I'm having trouble seeing that slide, my eyesight is very good.
I'm
I
sorry,
see the shed
ma'am,
behind
you
the
do need to come back up.
To answer, I have to be at this. Okay. I see the shed from my property at number 11.
Okay.
I don't quite get what you want to do with the shed.
I guess move it more toward the construction that's going to happen.
So there'd be
Well,
like
what would-
dead space behind the shed where,
What were the 6 feet that used to
We-
go?
we-
It's
we
just a
s- We still would
standard.
need you up at the microphone.
yeah, the 6 feet is just I was just trying to correct the variances to see if they needed another variance, and then we discovered that the
Okay.
shed is not on their property, so that wasn't a correction. I'm actually sorry I
if
ever
6
brought it up.
Okay,
Because-
sorry. I just meant if 6 feet would move it in toward, away from the westernmost point of that property, I would like that, but
I just get concerned having dead space behind a shed in a kind of dark area.
well, what's exactly behind it now? A fence?
There's a fence along here and just, there's open space that wraps around behind
Mhm.
the dwelling.
Right, okay.
And it's right next to that little two-family house, right, or whatever?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's, whatever.
Which, that's an interesting thing, that's there, but that was grandparented in a long time ago. Okay. What do I do, stay here and give my other thing?
Yes.
Not yet, okay. Thank you.
And just to note, Figure 1 of Ms. Talley, the planning memo does show the tax lots and the house numbers in the area.
Yep.
But I also understood that Ms. Nazaro was representing the Clover Hill gang, right? Yeah.
What color is the enclosure going to be on the roof?
We haven't selected that, but something complementary to the facade. So, I mean, I think it'll be like a lighter color.
And is it going to be see-through like it almost seems like it is from here?
Well, no, there's, what we have been specifying in the past is there's like a vertical slat and then like it's able to slide to access the units behind it. And the railings themselves, the equipment screens that itself is also set back from the, edge of the building.
I'm just thinking about somebody who's standing in the church parking lot. What are they going to see?
Right.
I mean, I saw from your drawings that really not going to be seen from the street,
Right.
but someone standing further back in that parking lot.
Yes.
So you
But
won't be able to see
it'll
the
be a
units through it?
solid-
It's,
You won't be able to see the equipment.
okay.
Okay. There's no roof access for the residents, is there?
There's just a maintenance, there's a roof hatch with a ladder on the top landing that goes up to the roof.
That's just for
Level.
maintenance
Correct.
access?
Is there roof access from the addition to the existing roof?
No,
Like, could somebody walk across the,
no.
okay. Other questions from the public? Well, we'll need you at the microphone.
This is recorded, so they want to hear your.
Do you need my name again? Anne Marie Nazaro, 11 Clover Hill Place, Montclair.
Thank you.
Because you brought up roof access, I recalled another question, or it's comment question. You're putting the AC units on top of the building.
Correct.
So do you realize how that's going to feel and look to the Clover Hill Place residents? I mean, we gaze out over Pine Street, and we like the kind of the openness of it, and now you're going to block us in with another story, and you're going to have air conditioning units not so presentable and noisy on top of the building.
Well, they will be screened in, and actually the building height that we're proposing is less than the maximum height that's allowable. So with the additional height of the screen, it's not
Yeah.
as detrimental.
Allowable, that's like, you know, what isn't always right.
Correct.
So allowable is in that
And
category.
then the building itself is 98 feet from the rear property line. So they'll be less noisy in terms of, that's quite a distance. I don't know if you're.
And who's going to get the noise? The little house in front?
We can stipulate that they will not exceed the noise levels that are permissible under state law. It won't even come close to it, given the fact that they're 100 feet from, almost 100 feet from the property line.
Right now, the noise is birds, so how are you going to compete with that?
I mean, houses need the air
I mean,
conditioning, and this is just
Yeah.
a side effect of that. I mean, I understand your concern, but we're placing them on the roof,
Okay.
and it's set back, so to have minimal impact.
And who's the target for the units that you're building or proposing to build?
That would be a question for the owner.
Are they going to be rental?
There'll be rentals.
And who will afford the rentals?
That's not something that we're prepared to discuss, or are we required to discuss as part of this application.
So there is no requirement for low or moderate income housing when
There
you're
is.
just doing 3 units?
Right. We're not
Right.
required to provide an affordable.
And the
unit.
town doesn't put any stipulation like that?
The units will
Since
be subject to rent control once they're in.
all
But
of
they'll
the
be
u-
market rate, and then they'll be subject to the 4% rent control.
So they'll go out as market rate, so they'll be high, but then only 4%?
They'll be market rate and then 4% every year, which 4%, in my view, hardly covers anything, so we won't go there.
Right, but that market rate covers plenty.
We need housing, it has an accessible unit. Anyway,
We need housing, but think about the people housed in that neighborhood now. They're not going to be able to rent those apartments, correct? And I know they're new, you're not displacing somebody from that parking lot, but it is a consideration, the texture, the context, the neighborhood is a consideration. I don't know how the planning board, boy.
The town ordinance requires that if you providing 5 new units, one has to be affordable. We're only providing 3. There's
not
a lot
affordable,
of-
accessible.
No, no, he's
Accessible.
saying
I think
if
it's
he
also
did
affordable.
5.
Oh,
Yep.
Wow, what a good way to do it. You
I think
got
that's our-
5 for the 2 that are already there.
That's our
What
IZO.
rate are the 2 existing units at?
We don't have that information, and it's not relevant to this application.
Well, you're
to-
cooking up 5 out of 2. Wouldn't there be any restriction on that?
On building 3 units?
Well, there are 2 units existing. If you add 3, and it's even going to be appended to the 2 that exist, doesn't
It-
that make you a purveyor of a 5-unit?
No, we're adding 3 new units. If we were adding 5 units, we'd have to provide one affordable. We're only creating 3 new units. There's no requirement to provide an affordable under the township ordinance. There is, I believe, probably a requirement for a monetary contribution to go towards affordable housing, but we're not.
From the developer?
Yes.
To go overall to affordable?
Mhm.
You're aware of that?
there's a
as the
housing
planning-
trust fund that they contribute to.
Okay. Okay, I'll wait for the statement period then, I think.
Okay. Any other questions from the public? Hearing none.
Okay.
I'm going to suggest maybe we take it 5-minute break at this point. Sure, that's okay. On the record?
Rick, are we good to go? Okay.
Good, great. Mr. Trumbulack.
Okay, my next witness is William Stimmel.
Yes, sir.
That the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Would you please state your full name and business affiliation for the record?
Sure. William Stimmel, S-T-I-M-M-E-L. My professional address is P.O. Box 280, Rutherford, New Jersey, and I'm self-employed, Stimmel Engineering.
Mr. Stimmel, I know you've testified previously before the zoning board in town, but I think this may be your first appearance before the planning board. So why not just start by providing the board with your educational background and your professional qualifications?
Sure. I'm a graduate of NJIT with a degree in civil engineering. I've been employed for the past 22 years in the state of New Jersey as an engineer and a planner. I'm a licensed engineer and a licensed planner. Both are current. I've been accepted as an expert witness on engineering and planning issues in front of boards in over 70 municipalities in the state, including Montclair Zoning Board, but not as far as I can recall the Montclair Planning Board.
Yeah. Qualifications acceptable. We're just
accepted.
offering as a professional planner, even though he has both licenses.
Yes.
Okay. Bill, you're familiar with the application?
Yes, I am.
All right, and you're also familiar with the zoning ordinance, or at least the provisions of the zoning ordinance that apply to this application?
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right, you want to discuss your, or begin your presentation by talking about the existing conditions of this property and then talking about what's being proposed?
Sure, just very briefly, I know the board just heard all of this, but the site is a rectangular lot with an area of 7,926 square feet. It's about 0.18 acres. The subject property is currently developed with a two-story, two-family residential structure on the easterly portion of the property towards Pine Street. Right now, there's one curb cut which leads to a shared driveway. It passes along the southern side of the building and connects to a parking area at the rear of the building. That driveway, of course, is shared with the adjoining residential property to the south. In that rear parking area right now, there's an existing detached garage building which is approximately 2,200 square feet. The applicant's proposing to maintain the existing residential structure, build an addition off of the rear of that, which is going to be a three-story addition providing 3 residential dwelling units. The 2 units in the existing structure will remain. The detached garage will be demolished. The detached garage has a larger footprint, in fact, than the proposed addition, proposed residential addition to the principal building on the property. The rear parking area will be revised to provide for 9 parking spaces, including 1 ADA parking space. There will be a number of aesthetic improvements to the existing building, restoring the clapboard siding, restoring the windows to something more appropriate for the dwelling. And the proposed addition will be constructed in a way and designed in a way so that the treatments and finishes of the exterior will be complementary to the surrounding neighborhood. The architect also went through a number of lighting improvements, landscaping improvements, and I think expressed a willingness to some extent to comply with the comments from the board and the board's professionals in terms of modifications therein. So that's the existing and the proposed condition.
Okay, and can you talk about the neighboring properties, the surrounding area, and also the zoning for this site?
Sure, I'm going to piggyback, if I can, on the wonderful PowerPoint presentation put together by Mr. Colello. I'm referring to sheet 2 from the Sionis architecture exhibit, which shows an aerial photograph of the area. So highlighted in the yellow rectangle is the existing subject property. The site is located in the R4 3-story apartment zone. There are a total of 8 relatively deep lots along the western portion of Pine Street, 5 of which you can see in the vicinity of the subject property. The others are on the other side of the Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church. Those lots are roughly 40 feet wide and range from 175 to 200 feet deep, so they're about 7,000 to 8,000 square foot in area. They're predominantly developed right now with existing two-family or multi-family dwellings. And they're all located in the Pine Street Historic District, subject to the review of the HPC. As Mr. Trembulac had noted, I believe, in his opening, the HPC has in fact reviewed this application, issued a memo on September 15th, which had minimal comments, minimal modifications requested or required to the subject property. So the R4 three-story apartment zone, and this is from section 347-66 of the ordinance, allows for townhouses, multifamily dwellings with a density of up to 28 units per acre, municipal facilities, senior housing, as well as 1- and 2-family dwellings. So the proposed density for this development with the 5 units on the 0.18 acres comes out to 27 dwelling units per acre and change. So we do comply with the density requirement. So the proposed multifamily use is permitted in the zone. The proposed density meets the requirement of the zone. So that's why this application is in front of the planning board as opposed to the zoning board.
Okay, and then would you move on to identify and discuss the variances that are being requested?
Sure. There are 4 variances associated with the application. The first is minimum lot size, where 15,000 square feet is required for multifamily and 7,967 square feet are existing and proposed. Obviously, the size of the property isn't changing. The surrounding lots are all fully developed, but the fact that the property is going from two-family to multifamily dwelling, that's where the requirement for the larger lot size comes in. It's the same thing with the lot width, where 150 feet is required, 40 feet is existing and proposed. The dimensions of the lot, the width, and the lot area are consistent with the adjoining lots on the western side of Pine Street, both to the north of and to the south of the Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church. So it's in keeping certainly with the with that side of Pine Street and with the surrounding properties. There's a variance for the minimum side yard setback, where 20 feet is required and 2.3 feet are provided on one side and 11.78 feet on the other side. And that condition is being largely maintained. The proposed setbacks for the addition are 2.43 feet, so slightly better than what exists on that side of the property, and 11.98 feet on the other side of the building. And again, that's slightly better than the existing condition. This is an existing condition which becomes a variance due to the proposed building addition. They're essentially holding the current side yard setback on both sides of the property, but with the extension of the building, you're extending the area impacted by that side yard. And then finally, the front yard setback, where 20 feet is required, 0 feet is existing and proposed. And I would state that this is an existing nonconformity which isn't impacted by the proposed development. And in fact, one of the concerns with the Pine Street Historic District was maintaining the historic facades of the building. So in order to do that, we need to keep the existing facade of the building where it's located. So those are the 4 C variances associated with the application. There are also 2 design waivers. The first is for minimum parking aisle width, where 24 feet is required, 16 feet is existing and proposed. The architect had testified to that there's additional maneuvering area on the adjoining property to the south. So there's about 16 feet on our side of the property line, 16 feet on the neighbor's side of the property line. So you've got 32 feet of maneuvering area there. So there's actually more than what's required. And the applicant has agreed to stipulate that a easement would be created in perpetuity to maintain that condition to preserve vehicular access to the rear of the property. The second design waiver is for 2-way driveway width, where 18 feet is required, 14 feet is existing, and 10 feet is proposed. And this relates to the area between the building on the subject property and the building on the adjoining property to the south. The current driveway has a 2-way traffic pattern with a 14-foot width. 14 feet, and Mr. Trembielak and I were talking about this before the meeting, is technically you could probably squeeze 2 cars through there, but you'd be white knuckling the steering wheel the whole way. And then once you take into account things like downspouts, gas connections, window wells, utility boxes, things like that, it really isn't functional. So practically speaking, the driveway as it exists now doesn't support two-way traffic with cars passing at the same time. So the DRC comment was to provide a sidewalk along the side of the building to make that pedestrian connection from the rear to the front, because you wouldn't practically impact the operation of the driveway, so the applicant agreed to do that. So that is the second design waiver associated with the application.
Can you provide your analysis of the variances that are being requested, and your opinion as to whether the variances can be justified under the appropriate standards in the municipal land use law?
Certainly. As far as the positive criteria goes, I believe that the front yard setback variance comes under the heading of the C1 hardship variance. It relates to the existing building, which is lawfully existing on the subject property in relation to where the property line is. So there's no setback now, there's no possibility to acquire additional property there, and that condition is being maintained. The other 3 C variances, the lot size, the lot width, and the side yard setback, would come under the heading of the C2 flexible C variances, where the purposes of zoning are advanced and the proposed application does not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. I found 4 purposes of the municipal land use law which were advanced by this application. The first was to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in the state in a manner which will promote the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Obviously, you're providing new housing units. You're providing an accessible ADA compliant unit. I found several purposes of the master plan which are advanced, and I'm just going to briefly touch on those. This comes from the 2016 master plan re-examination under the land use objectives. The first objective is to maintain Montclair as a desirable residential community and to accommodate a range of population and income groups. And the second is to ensure that new development is harmonious with existing development in scale and style and does not harm the quality of life of surrounding neighborhoods. So first, the site is being redeveloped with an appropriate density for the zone in which it's located. It complies with the density requirement. The aesthetics of the building will be complementary to the existing uses in the surrounding area while maintaining the historic facade in the Pine Street Historic District. You're providing 3 new units, one of which is accessible in a brand new building, which is fully code compliant. Obviously, being a historic district, as you would expect, much of the housing in the area is older, so this is new dwelling units in effectively a new building. The next master plan goals and objectives that I would cite come under the housing section. Housing objectives number 3, which is to maintain the condition of the older housing stock, notes that 61% of the housing as of 2016, when the report was issued, was constructed prior to 1940. Notes that several of the neighborhoods in Montclair are listed on national and state registers of historic places, and the outstanding architectural features and diverse styles of architecture in the township of Montclair. And again, that would be maintained. We're providing the new housing while keeping the historic element of the site. So that goal has been satisfied as well. And then as far as the negative component, the negative criteria of the variances that's being requested, the applicant has to demonstrate that there's no substantial detriment to the public good and no impairment to the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. Based on my review of the material submitted and the testimony provided by the architect, review of the comment letters from the board professionals, I can see no substantial detriment or substantial impairment to the zone plan and zoning ordinance. Again, the proposed addition is largely in keeping with the requirements of the zone, going to have a significant aesthetic upgrade to the property compared to what's there now. You've got this large 2,200 square foot concrete block building, which is pushed all the way back to the shared property line with the residences along Clover Hill. That's being eliminated. The new addition is being constructed right off of the back of the existing residential building, which fronts on Pine Street. The applicant, I think for the most part, has incorporated the recommendations of the DRC and the HPC. The site will be a minimal traffic generator. We're only talking about 3 residential dwelling units, so the volumes associated with that will be minuscule. And then finally, and knowing this is always an issue in Montclair, the parking will be accommodated on site. So the applicant has provided the 9 required parking spaces. The parking component will be satisfied. So for all those reasons, I believe the board has sufficient justification to grant the requested variance relief.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Questions from the board?
Would you think that, since this is just steps away from a train, that would also impact the need for parking in transit and cars?
Certainly, without doing a detailed breakdown, you would assume that with the access to transit at this property, you'd have less than typical demand for parking and traffic generation as well.
Other questions? Questions from the public about this witness's testimony?
Once again, Lois Thompson, 31 Grand Street in Montclair.
Just before you start, Mr. Stimmel, there's a handheld mic on the cart over there, or you can sit down next to Mr. Trumbulack and use that microphone. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Stimmel, you said that you didn't see a big deal with going from 14 feet to 10 feet in a shared driveway where right now 2 vehicles cannot get in and out. Is that correct?
Correct. 2 vehicles can't
pass each other.
pass by each other now and
Correct.
can't pass by each other in the future.
Correct. And I believe I forgot, I'm sorry, my apologies for not remembering your name.
Oh, that's okay.
But you said that since this is a shared driveway currently, even though there's not a variance for an easement, you did say that there's 6 families in the house at 80 and 2
In the rear.
that's current. So now you're adding 3 new families that will have to go back and forth in that 110 feet. And if you can look at the pictures that were submitted of what's currently there, and you're putting in a walkway. So people are going to be utilizing a walkway to get to the front, correct?
Correct, yes.
So you'll have a walkway in this very clean area. So if you look at the architect's drawing, or the architect's information, which is on page 3 that shows the driveway, you're going to have a walkway and 2-way traffic in that walkway.
Well, the driveway allows for 2-way movements, but you can't pass by 2 cars side by side right now.
Correct.
Or in the future, if this plan were to be approved as submitted. So effectively, you have 1 car driving down the middle. The applicant, at the request of the DRC, elected to put in a sidewalk alongside the building so that you would still effectively have 1 car driving down the middle, but you've got the pedestrians as they pass along the side of the building using that walkway and being protected from vehicular traffic.
Are they not walking into or walking from vehicular traffic? Because if only 1 car can go in at a time or out at a time, so if I'm turning into the driveway or coming out and someone is walking through this narrow path, especially in night, if there's not sufficient lighting, does that not kind of, in my opinion, I'm not, you're the witness here, but in my opinion, that just seems a little sketchy that you're going to have someone walking here and someone coming in or going out.
This is an existing condition. I mean, right now,
Correct.
the parking's in the rear.
At 14 feet.
You have pedestrians coming out to the front. The proposed plan is a better option than what exists there now. The architect had testified that lighting upgrades are going to be made to the subject property, so there will be lighting along that walkway, which would be presumably an improvement over what's there now. So you're not really you're not really changing what's happening. You're still going to have one car that can pass through there. You're still going to have pedestrian traffic, but what you're doing is separating them by putting pedestrians on the walkway and keeping cars on the blacktop. So,
But
to
you're
me,
going to
it-
take up part of the blacktop, though, for the walkway?
Correct, but
Okay.
at the loss of no functionality, because you can't pass by two cars anyway. I think that from my professional opinion, I believe what's proposed is a safer option than what exists.
Okay. All right. Because the residents currently use the front entrance, right?
Yes.
So they take the front entrance and then walk around, so they have a view to walk around, to go to the back to get their cars, because their cars are currently in the back.
Correct.
So it's not like where now you're going to have 3 new families in the back. Okay. So, but they're not going to use that front entrance anyway.
Well, there will still be access through the front of the building. There will be access to the new apartments through the
little turns.
joint between the existing and proposed building, and then there will be access to, I believe, and the architect can tell me if I'm wrong, to the lower unit in the new portion of the building through the rear.
Okay. But if they're going across the street to the laundromat, which is on the corner, they're going to more than likely walk through that area to get across the street. Reasonable?
Presumably, yeah.
Well, no. I apologize. You did say, someone said that there's a laundry in their unit. So maybe they're not going there, but they're going somewhere else to
I
to
didn't
get.
catch that. I know
I
there's
think
a
someone
laundromat
said
across
that
the
there's
street,
laundromat there's laundry in the new units, but
Yeah, and just sitting here thinking about it, providing that sidewalk alongside the building pushes the cars away from the building at 82 Pine Street a little bit. So I think the chairman had alluded to the fact that in this neighborhood, frequently the buildings are right up on the property line, and certainly our building is right up on the front property line as it exists. So if you push the cars over a little bit, it provides a little bit better visibility for people walking on Pine Street to see drivers coming out of the driveway, or vice versa.
I don't agree with that, seeing how I've kind of taken a look in preparation for this meeting. I've taken a look, and I don't think that having another walkway is going to provide more area for anyone turning or for the pedestrian. But we'll differ on that. But I just wanted to ask about that, because I think by adding now a walkway, that's the concern.
Again, that was a recommendation of the Development Review Committee. We thought it was a good one.
Yeah.
Can I just
Okay.
ask, ma'am, I want to make sure I understand your concern. Is your concern that the proposal is not going to be safe for the residents of the building, or is your concern that it's not going to be safe for people on Pine Street, or both?
I think it's for the residents, proposed for the new residents. I don't think it's safe, as well as nothing changes in terms of the walkway, the sidewalk that's currently there, right? But the concern is you're adding more cars to the equation. So if I'm walking in front of this building or just walking down the street, you have more cars that you have to deal with.
Thank you, I appreciate that
Thank
clarification.
you.
Other questions from the public of this witness? No questions.
We have no further witnesses. No.
How is the sidewalk going to be distinguished from the driveway? Is there going to be a curb separating the sidewalk from is there going to be a fence? How is it going to be delineated?
Right now, it shows a curb on the plan. I don't have the details in front of me. I would assume 6 inches.
So the curb will run the entirety of the walkway. So cars will have at least something to prevent them from going onto the, okay.
Right, it'll fade down to meet the grade of the sidewalk at the property line.
Okay.
Is the sidewalk at a different elevation than the driveway?
The street sidewalk along Pine Street, you'll have a 6-inch curb, and then it will meet once you get to the property line at Pine Street.
But it's going to be sloped, so if you have a wheelchair, you're,
Correct.
you're just zooming on over there, yeah.
But speaking about the sidewalkway, that was gonna have a curb, or it's,
Yes.
The sidewalk along the side of the building will have a curb, yes.
right.
Ah, Ms. Tiberi.
So,
So we'll have to give you a microphone. Mr. Sibilia, can you just lean yours over? Ah,
Back to you.
so for the new building, the residents in the new building, the first floor, the access is from the back of the building. So someone would drive in, they would park and go into the back of the building, correct?
Correct.
Okay. How do the people who live in the second and third floor, how's their movement through the site and into the building?
I think Mr. Colello's gonna have to answer that.
If they're parking, they would park in one of the spots,
Right.
and then they would have to walk alongside the landscape and then get up to where we have the sidewalk and then walk to the connector to access the building, to access the entry point between the buildings. So there is a portion where they're walking along the driveway. Given the number of cars and traffic, we didn't feel that that would be an issue. And then if they're just going out for a walk, they would obviously walk down the connector along that sidewalk to get to the sidewalk.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, would it make sense to connect the sidewalk all the way through to the back so those people are never walking in with the the
Yeah.
vehicles driving?
Part of the reason we didn't want to do that is due to the landscaping. We wanted to, add that feature.
Would I possibly suggest that you could continue the sidewalk and the landscaping, which would also act as a calming measure for the traffic leaving the driveway, to make sure everyone's going nice and slow and safely transiting? So basically, you just have an additional 3 feet of cut-in, or whatever the sidewalk width is.
Right, if we continue the sidewalk, I think the landscaping over there is only like 4'2", so if we have the 3-foot sidewalk, then there's virtually not enough space for landscaping.
In addition to the landscaping, so you can continue along the curve
Right.
to maintain the landscaping and add the sidewalk.
Then we have less of a, drive aisle on our property, but, accounting for the adjacent property, that could work. But it's also, we have to be cognizant of how much space there is at that pinch point between the adjacent building and there's the open stairs on the back of it with how we're routing that sidewalk.
other questions? No more.
We have no further witnesses, Mr. Chair. That
Okay.
completes our case.
Okay. Are there questions from the public about the application as a whole? Sorry, comments. Thank you. Comments. Step right up.
Lois Thompson, 31 Grant Street, Montclair. My only comment is about the access and the road access to Pine Street. I'm off of Grant. Now, coming off of Grant, I'll be honest, went in the morning, or really any time of day, it's hard turning, right? Because if you have, just today I walked out to the corner just thinking about this, and I'm like, turning in and out that driveway when it's one car, now you're adding additional vehicles, and Pine Street is two-way traffic. So you have that two-way traffic, now you have more cars, That's my concern, is access and going out or going in. I mean, sometimes I'm sitting there, I have to wait for other cars to come by in order to do that. And if you've never really traveled on Pine Street, you don't know what I'm talking about, but it gets really busy, and the traffic is what I'm concerned about. I don't have any fundamental issues with the applicants, the right to build. I'm just thinking, by adding 3 additional units, now you have a total of 11 families, 1 driveway, right? Because you have 6 in the other, and now you have 5. That's a lot it's really essentially a one-way driveway to get in and out. So that's my concern, is the traffic and the flow of traffic. I'm not sure if this is my first time speaking in front of the planning board, but I don't know if there's like a traffic study that's done before we get to this point, but that was my concern.
Is there a stop sign?
There's a stop sign.
At your corner?
Yes, it is, but
Okay.
it's so far back, and that's another issue, and maybe I
Okay.
need to, but it's back away, so if I'm making a left
Right.
to go to Bloomfield Avenue,
Yeah.
it's hard because you can't see. The sight vision is really hard making a left
Okay.
for us,
Right. No, I get it. Yep. Okay.
because it's back.
It's back.
A ways from the actual street.
It could be moved, perhaps.
Yeah.
Up further.
Yeah.
We could.
But then
look into
I
that.
guess, like I
Yeah.
said before, it's the flow of traffic on an already busy
Sure.
street into Pine Street.
I sympathize with you. I live on Walnut Street, and I use that cut through all the time.
Mhm.
It's a narrow street with
It is.
traffic on with
Very
cars
narrow.
parked on both sides, and
Yeah.
then two-way traffic.
And we won't talk about if the
If
train
the train is there, yeah,
is
yeah.
there,
Yeah,
then
yeah,
that adds to
yeah,
the concern.
yep.
Okay?
Yeah, I think they
Thank you.
typically don't do traffic studies until there's at least another, I don't know, 50 or 100 in and outs.
Oh, okay.
It's typical. That doesn't mean they couldn't elect to do one, but
No, I'm
usually
not saying them to do it. I'm
from-
just saying in general. I don't know if the town does it on behalf to make a determination, if something like this happens.
Yeah, usually if the applicant's adding a lot of traffic, they will come in with a traffic study.
Okay.
And say whether or not it's going to impact the traffic. But
Mhm.
having sat here long enough, you'll hear, I think most traffic engineers will say, 3 new units, and the cars from 3 new units,
Yeah.
especially near a train station where presumably folks will be taking the train during the week. What? You don't agree? No. Okay.
I mean, if it
Even
were a
so,
situation.
most traffic engineers will probably tell you it's not going to appreciably
Yeah.
impact traffic, although I feel for you because I have driven down Pine Street. I
Yeah.
have gotten backed up there.
If it were the building on the other side, not telling you to buy that, but if it were on the other side and you had, an in and out, it would be easier. But you have two-way traffic, in this very narrow 10 feet space.
Yeah,
It's
it's a T.
yeah. And I recognize what the gentleman said about in the back, you have a lot of room. So I don't think they worry about backing up or any issues with that. It's just the actual driveway that is a concern for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments from the public?
Hello, my name is Sheila Swaggerty. I live at 7 Clover Hill Place in Montclair. I'm married to Kelly Swaggerty. He's been a resident at 7 Clover Hill for 61 years. He wrote me a little letter. Well, he wrote a letter. I'm only going to read one line. He's concerned about the quality of life. Yes, we want housing. People need housing. People need, really, in Montclair, affordable housing. We've got high-priced luxury housing out there, I know. It's available. We need affordable housing. And to justify these variances being overlooked, I say it's not just because people need housing. How about quality of life? He's seen the progress on Pine Street through the years. No, he's used to go to Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church. We're concerned about the congestion, the lights. Okay, do you really believe that I've got the shed, the garbage shed, Do you really believe that the garbage shed for 2 dwellings is going to go to a garbage shed for 5 dwellings and, oh, no problem? This development is not no problem. This is a bunch of congestion and traffic, and I'm concerned about quality of life. So if the purpose of, if you're going to allow a variance to make a community more desirable, residential community, I submit this is not making our neighborhood more desirable. This was a great presentation. When I saw that presentation, it made me feel like this was just a complex, an apartment complex, but we're a whole block, and we've got a mixed commercial. You know, I'm in a 2-family home. We live in it as a 1-family, but this is really a hot mess. If you come around there and you walk around and you imagine all this stuff, this is congestion and lights and traffic, and people are going to be, I know what the traffic is like there and have the parking. So please just consider, I'm only going to read one line from my husband. He said the environment and quality of life are inseparable. One's environment is a primary means by which quality of life is experienced. Let's preserve what still remains and not opt to lose more of what will most likely ever be replaced. I know my next door neighbors. We need affordable housing in Montclair. This is luxury, high-priced housing. How do I know? Because I know what my neighbors, the rent. It's high price. We've got that. We've got that at Valley Road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anne Marie Nazaro, 11 Clover Hill Place. I just want to be clear that you're about to approve or modify, or maybe approve, something that is asking for only 25%, that you approve 25% of the lot width of what's normally required at 150 feet for 3-story multifamily dwelling. This is what I was alluding to earlier. It's one of the elements of the strangulation by variances. So please, please, each one of you consider carefully how you're going to review and act on this request. I moved to Montclair in 1983, and the black population was 1/3 of the population of Montclair. And this evening in 2022, we're barely 1/4. Black population of Montclair is barely 1/4 of the total population. The kind of development that we're acting on this evening for market rate, for the kind of housing, this is an element in the changing, the evolving Montclair population. I was attracted to this town for its diversity, for the population that we had and that we're struggling now to hold on to. The second point that I really want to stress, this process of notifying the neighbors is kind of what I would characterize as whiplash. We got this little certificate in our mailboxes to go to the post office and pick up a certified letter. Well, you get the slip and maybe it takes a day or two to get there. The letter wasn't even mailed till the evening of September 23rd. Then the weekend ensued, and then the little tickets showed up Monday or Tuesday in the Clover Hill mailboxes. By the time you get over there, it's the end of the week, and voila, Monday night is the hearing. Get there if you can. So I think the process needs to be looked at, because as the neighbors, we don't feel so respected or included in the deliberations in an effective and meaningful way, and in given enough time way. My neighbors at number 9, right over those scraggly trees and the fencing on the west, at the west side of the property, these neighbors, and I want to be sure I let you hear what they'd like to say.
Hold on, you're reading now something from that is from your neighbors?
We are the homeowners of 9 Clover Hill Place, and were given 2 business days from delivery of notice of the meeting to secure childcare and were not able to do so. Therefore, please accept our statement from our neighbor Anne Marie Nazaro. We oppose these variances
Can I
requested.
just object?
A.
Hold on, please, I'm sorry. Can we understand what she's reading from and whose comments they are? Are they your comments?
I'm
Are they
sorry.
neighbors?
I'm sorry, Mr. Trembulack. If you listened, I expressed that these are the neighbors directly behind your property, your 82
Okay.
Pine, at number 9 Clover Hill Place. Their names are Maddie and Alex Ciliata Young.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so this is their statement, not
Yes.
yours. I don't think it.
The lot size-
It's not something that the board would ordinarily
This is a legal
permit.
question that Mr. Trembulack is
Okay,
raising.
good.
The people who you are claiming to represent are not here.
I'm the co-chair of the neighborhood association.
I understand, but
Okay.
those people whose statement you're apparently reading are not here to say for
That's
themselves.
correct. Okay.
And if we allowed, legally speaking, if that were allowed, then people would come before the board reading statements all over the place.
I see.
That's not
Right.
appropriate, and it's not a proper procedure.
Okay.
So I would.
All right,
I would
then let me just state these as from myself, because I'm right next door to them. I will just continue my statement then.
Well,
Okay?
it's
But you can't
obvious.
read their statement.
It's obvious you're
No,
reading their statement.
Okay, because I announced that I was, but I'd like
Okay.
to tell you that to amplify the process being inadequate, my neighbors who really wanted to be here couldn't get childcare in enough time to be here.
Let me also say this, that based on my review of the mailing and the affidavits of service that were employed here, the applicant's service of notice complied with the municipal land use law of the state of New Jersey. And therefore, I have no, and had no issue with the notice that was served. So while I appreciate that it created certain hardships for you and your neighbors, it still was in compliance with New Jersey state law.
Right.
So I want to
Thank you, Mr. Neese, for emphasizing the letter of the law and missing the comments from the neighbors about the spirit of a law.
You are here not testifying, you are here on behalf of yourself, ma'am.
Yes,
And
I
you-
am.
And you can speak on behalf of yourself. Reading a statement from your neighbors is not an appropriate way for this board to hear from your neighbors.
Okay.
They ought to be here and state
Okay.
for themselves their
May
position.
they drop off a statement to your office
Uh,
or to the?
They can do as they see fit. What they
Okay.
can't do is have you stand before the
Sure.
board and say to the board, this is what my neighbors say. Because if that were the case, then people would come before these
No,
boards.
I got that. I'm sorry to interrupt. I did understand that.
Okay.
But I started by saying my neighbors who couldn't be here asked me to make some of their comments.
And that is
And nobody
objectionable.
stopped me right then and there.
And that was an objectionable course.
Okay, but you didn't say
That's-
that until Mr. Trembulack raised it.
I don't want to take, I think we've taken more time than would have taken for her to read the statement. I'm not sure, I mean, I think that unless you're saying that we can't, I think the board is able to give appropriate weight to what she says is a statement of somebody else. We recognize that it's not a usual procedure, but I'm just kind of wondering whether we are legally prohibited from having her read the statement, or whether it's your advice that it's not advisable.
It's my advice. And the reason for my advice is that if this happens here, we will have, at the next meeting, we will have people coming before us reading statements. That's not an appropriate.
But subject to a 3-minute limit anyway. I mean, if they want to say that it's
I
their
don't know
own.
that our board, our bylaws require that.
Not only that, I think you should be able to question witnesses. So if you're
Right.
reading a statement,
Well, this
you
is
can't
just
question-
comment. This is comment.
Yeah.
It's not,
But-
and even this person has not been sworn, so it's not a question of testimony. The point is that having people come before the board and saying, well, my neighbors wanted to say this, is an inappropriate way for this board to proceed, in my opinion.
I think what Ms. Lockman's trying to say is that it's helpful, and I think it's appropriate when we can ask questions of, members of the public making a statement, and to try and understand more about what, the comments, concerns, questions are. And it's, we can't do that if it's.
But I think she's actually prepared to, look, if everybody wants to,
Technical
not
question
hear
is
it,
fine.
fine, but I would just assume, okay.
No.
Yep.
Did you have anything else that you wanted to add that was not from your neighbor?
For myself, well, I think I've exhausted the time of questions, but the variances, I think I've mentioned that, the setbacks, the thing, what we're in agreement in Clover Hill Place land is the whole change in our Montclair population, in what's happening to affordable and low-income housing, and that's a grave concern. And I don't know if you're able to answer, how does the planning board intervene in issues like that, in the whole fabric of the town issues?
It's, while I agree it's an important issue, it's not something we can legally consider as a planning board
On this application.
on this application.
Maybe in a wider sense, I don't know. But thank you, and I will advise my neighbors accordingly, and I appreciate that Mr. Jacobson said that you said what you said. Thank you.
May I ask the witness a question?
Sure.
Member of the public, not witness, right?
I'm sorry. Ms. Nazaro. I'm just trying to understand, you've several times referred to scraggly trees along the rear property line.
Well,
Are
I
you
mean,
talking about the trees that would be currently located behind the garage?
Yeah, Nicholas, the ones that you showed us on the slide, they're scraggly by virtue
All
of
right,
being
let me just show you to
congested
make
in that
sure we're
space.
talking about the same trees.
Okay,
'Cause
don't-
what I'm looking at,
Don't get too
my mind
close, I don't have
appear
a
to be
minute.
straggly, but this is a photo from the planning department's report on this application. Is that the trees?
Which
Figure
photo is
four,
that?
I'm
Figure
sorry.
four?
What photo are you referring to,
Figure
Ms.?
4 on page 3. if you
No, I think that's more behind my house. I can't see from that perspective, but what you showed, they were kind of stuck, they looked mostly like just trunks. Yeah, can you show that
Mr.
picture?
Sibilia, are you able to pull that back up on the screen?
Yeah, what you had. I don't know.
That's, figure 4 is what Mr. Tremblay
Anyway,
is
you
referring
want to
to.
say they're lush?
I just want to make sure we're talking about the same trees, because
Maybe it was a seasonal.
But I wonder if the member of the public is asking about figure 7, also on the planner's memo.
Well, this, I didn't ask now, this is, now Mr. Tremblay is asking you to specify.
Right, I'm just trying to help
Behind the garage.
clarify for
behind
folks.
the garage. And so that would be the tree shown on figure 6.
Right,
Is that it?
the photos that I was showing was directly standing behind the garage, so you really only just see the trunks.
The trunks, right.
But actually, if you look at the other site
Oh, you
photo,
see
you
the
really see how,
overstory,
yes.
the canopy.
Looking at the garage, you can see all the leaves behind the tree, so.
Okay.
I think it's
when
just a-
yeah, the row there. And those are gonna stay?
Those are staying, yes.
And when the garage comes down, the parking spaces go there?
Right,
How
but the
close to my
setback,
neighbor
I
are
believe
parking
4
spaces
feet
be? 4 feet
from the property line, which
from
is what the requirement
fence
is.
will be at the property line, and then 4 feet in will be
Correct.
parking?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so your issue is the foliage.
I just wanted to make sure we were talking about the same trees.
Lois Thompson, 31 Grant. And I'd be remiss if I did not take this opportunity to also voice my concern about the neighborhood. I've lived at 31 Grant as an owner for over 20, over 20 years, way before the train came in, before everything changed in the neighborhood in terms of the traffic and so forth. And the neighborhood is changing. And some of it may not be for the best. People are being driven out. Yes, this is new construction, but the people who are moving in probably, they're transient, right? They'll come, they'll go. They're not really adding to it. So as I just forgot the lady who was here before said, you know, it's changing. And for some of us, the change is not necessarily for the better. And when you look at it, when you look at the people, as I said, I've lived there 25 years. I've seen what my neighbors look like, and they're all being driven out for higher price. So that's also a concern. So if I didn't say that, I would be remiss. So I did want to say that that's another thing. So now you're just going to keep, you know, not you, but people just keep putting, now it's like, okay, now we go to the 4th Ward. Now we go on Pine Street, where there really wasn't that much given to Pine Street prior to this. Yeah, there have been some changes. There are a couple landlords in that area. People are buying up, you know, to take care of the Brooklyn West. That's what I've heard Montclair referred to. That's a major concern as well.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Neese, question about the notice. Is that something we have the power to change in terms of notice to nearby residents? You mentioned, you know, it was
No.
in compliance with state law. Is that anything we can change?
No.
No.
Well, I have another question. I said it's at every meeting, I think. That is state law, but we can go beyond state law, can't we? We can't. We have to just stick to the letter of the law. Because my concern is always that tenants never get any notice. It's
Right.
always landlords that get notice.
There's no prohibition.
Well, that's what I'm
for-
asking. You could.
Well, there's no prohibition, but we can't require applicants to do something that is not cognizable at law.
Mr. Trumbulack.
But you're about to change ordinances that say 150 square feet, and, I mean,
All right, Mr. Chair, if I might sum up, and I'll try to keep my comments brief. And what we're proposing here is a 3-story addition, adding 3 additional units in an R4 3-family apartment zoning district. We comply, this is a permitted use. We meet the density requirements of the ordinance. The ordinance, again, is referred to as a 3-story apartment zone. We're proposing 3 stories. Obviously, we don't meet the 150-foot width requirement, but no other property on Pine Street does either. If you drive down Pine Street, which we've all done, and of course I drove down it today, again, you see on both sides of the street 3-story apartment buildings on narrow lots, 40 feet, and some are even less than 40 feet. This is totally consistent with what's there now. In fact, I believe there's 2 buildings on that street that are not 3 families. One is this building and another one across the street. But this is a established neighborhood of 3-story buildings on narrow lots. So what we're proposing is totally consistent with what's there now. And it's a permitted use. We're not adding more density than the zoning ordinance allows, and we're certainly not adding more density than this property can accommodate. We're providing sufficient parking for what would be a total of 5 uses. 5 apartments. You know, and I think there are a multitude of benefits from this proposal. And one of which I think has been overlooked here is the elimination of this large, it's hard to call it a garage. If it's more like a commercial garage structure in the rear of this property, 2,200 square feet footprint, which is Mr. Stimmel's noted, and you can see, look at the plans, that's large. You're eliminating that building, which butts up right against the Clover Hill properties. eliminating that building entirely, and the addition that we're adding to this building is small, has a smaller footprint than that, and it's obviously away from the residential neighbors on Clover Hill, and that, I think, is a significant benefit. You know, and we're eliminating that building. I know there's a concern about the shed, which again, it's not on our property. We're proposing to use, I think it's a fairly attractive trash enclosure by comparison to a lot of others. And it's been used that way, and we're proposing to continue to use it, and adding 3 additional apartments is not gonna overburden the trash enclosure, and it's not gonna add a significant traffic to this neighborhood. I mean, we're talking about 3 additional apartments at most, 3 additional cars coming out in the morning and going back in the evening, and probably less given the proximity to the train station. But again, the density, this use is permitted under the zoning ordinance, which contemplates, multi-story, multi-family use at the property. As far as the concerns about access, I mean, these properties have been used in this fashion for many years with basically one way in, one way out. It's worked. 3 additional units is not going to provide any significant safety issues, and we think we're improving the situation by following the DRC's recommendation to narrow the driveway and provide the 4-foot sidewalk, which we think is better. We don't have to do that, but I think we'd like to, because I think it is a better situation, as the DRC suggested. Again, there are a lot of issues that have been mentioned about affordable housing and forcing people. We're not forcing people out at all. We're creating 3 additional housing units, but those concerns, are really not concerns for the planning board on a site plan application. What we're proposing is permitted. We think it adds, it adds a lot of benefit. I didn't even mention the fact that we're reducing the impervious coverage substantially, as the board engineer confirmed. We're adding a lot of landscaping that doesn't currently exist. The building appearance is going to be improved dramatically, I think, particularly in the front, as well as the addition. There's no real substantial detriment to the neighborhood by adding 3 additional units with a couple of cars, utilizing a driveway that's been used in this fashion for many, many years. And as I've indicated, we're going to provide for the appropriate easements so that these conditions remain and can't be changed going forward. We've, I think, addressed all of the concerns of the board engineer, and we've agreed to comply with all of Mr. Beery's comments and recommendations. And lastly, I have to, emphasize the fact that the Historic Preservation Commission viewed this application very favorably with just one comment. So I think for all of those reasons, this is a good application. The variances are justified, and I think this is actually an improvement for not only this property but for the neighborhood, and I would urge the board to approve the application.
Thank you. All right, hearing's closed. What does the board think? I suppose if you have questions.
Yeah, I just missed the.
But is your mic on?
No, sorry. I just missed the justification. Why isn't there a variance for impervious coverage? I think I might have missed that.
There's no variance.
Oh, why not if it requires 70, maximum of 70%?
There's not currently an impervious coverage requirement.
Oh, they're not? I thought I saw it in the zoning.
There's a proposed amendment to the ordinance, but it hasn't been adopted.
I thought I just read that there's a maximum. Now, give me 1 second. I don't have the ordinance right in front of me. I thought I read maximum impervious 7%. There's maximum building coverage of 30%, right?
Yeah, there's nothing. Mhm. Right.
It seems that may only be for assisted living facilities?
If an assisted living facility is in an R4, then it requires 70%.
That appears, from what I'm seeing on E-code, that seems it may be it.
Okay.
Do you have a citation for that?
347-67 permitted
Yeah, you're right.
conditional
Yep.
uses.
Yep, it's weird.
Yeah, very.
Okay, so just, okay. All right, and then, in terms of the 150 feet, the zoning doesn't fit what's there. It's 150 feet, but it's like R4 didn't fit in this zone, so I agree with that. Do you know if the trash shed has a permit?
You don't know.
Yeah, I think it should be allowed to be used if it was properly cited with a permit before. That's my, if there's no permit, then you should go through the process to properly cite it. And in my opinion, if it requires a setback with a permit, then just go through that process.
I think since it's over 100 square feet, it needs a permit.
The shed that's
Shed.
there.
If it requires a permit, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know when it was built. I mean, it was there when we purchased the property. Yeah, and also I have to point out, I mean, realize there's an interrelationship between the two properties, but the shed's not on the property. That's the subject of this application.
So you're saying that the property has no right to use the shed? You're proposing that it be used. It's being put forth as
Right.
there a trash enclosure. Right, you're saying that this property can take care of its trash because it has this shed. So it's a part of this
You're allowed to
application.
utilize the shed on the adjacent property. Look, if the board wants us to move the shed 6 feet, we'll move the shed 6 feet.
Well, I'm just saying, as long as if it received a permit, then it's okay. If it never had a permit, it should have one.
Okay.
It's rather simple.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all.
We can check
Yeah.
to see if there, if
Yeah.
a permit was issued for the shed.
And if it wasn't, would you be willing to go through the process?
Yes.
Other thoughts from the board?
What? Trying to think of something.
I was just wondering, could you, Mr. Timberlake, could you explain the relationship of the easements to the issues with regard to the driveway? There is no easement that's going to do anything about widening that driveway. That's only now going to be 10 feet. There's no easement that will have any impact on that at all, right?
The easement will simply memorialize and provide, in perpetuity, binding on all future owners, that the driveway would be available for use of both properties. Cross easements, since a portion of, there's a portion of the driveway is on our property, and, a smaller portion is on the next property, but both properties would have the right to utilize.
That's what I was a little confused about, or at least need more understanding of. You're saying that it's those two driveways together that make the 10 feet?
Right.
That's what I was trying to clarify.
The driveway, goes from building to building.
Right, and that's all you're gonna get is the 10 feet even between the two properties.
Well, there's 14 feet now.
Well, right, I know that, but we're
Right.
talking 10
The
and...
14
and-
feet goes from
and-
building to
and-
building. I think about 2.5 feet of the driveway is on 80 Pine Street, and then the remainder is on 82, this property.
And the tenants who will be entering from the back of the building, is that the only access, that 4-foot walkway? Is that the only access that they have to get from the back of
If
the
they're
building?
walking,
If they're walking.
They'd have to go, right, they'd have to walk on the sidewalk. If they drive, obviously, they're parking in
Right.
the rear, and then they would enter from the rear.
But the only walkway is that one walkway.
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
I just wanted
There's
to
no-
clarify.
Right, there's no place else to put one.
Right.
I got another question about the trees. We talked about the trees before. Those two large trees behind the shed that's being taken down, I think on the plan, those are staying, right?
All those trees are
they're
staying,
okay.
yes.
All right.
That was,
All right, I just wanted to,
right,
Yeah, but there's no trees being removed, right?
correct.
Well, my thought is, overall, I don't like the fact that there's only 10 feet of a driveway. I don't like the fact there's only 14 feet of a driveway. I think that's really difficult for two properties to use. But that's the way it's been operating for quite a while, and, presumably somewhat successfully. There's been no residents of those two buildings that have shown up and said there's some issue with that driveway width or with operations in that driveway. And so I don't think that 3 more units really would make a significant difference. And that was my main concern with this application, was the two-way drive. I think the parking aisles make sense considering both pieces of the property, and the distance that will be created from the easements. And I think with the things that we've heard tonight on some of the other conditions of the application, I would support the application and move that we approve it with those conditions.
Do we need to read the conditions?
Yes, that's why I was looking over at Mr. Neese.
Your recitation of the
Please.
conditions? The ones that I'm aware of are the following. The applicant will establish and grant an easement for the sewer line. Microphone's not on.
Apologies.
We need like a light that he could just,
Yeah.
or a remote turn-on system. It's great.
Maybe get the cuckoo bird that comes down on the Marx Brothers. Again, the conditions that I picked up is that the applicant will establish, and I guess Mr. Tremblack and I will have to work out the verbiage for this, but establish and grant an easement for the sewer line that exists on the property for at least 5 feet from the pipe, based on my discussion with Ms. Taberry.
On each side of the pipe.
Each side.
Well, if the applicant who owns the other side of the property is willing to do that, then of course I'm going to agree.
Well, I guess.
I mean, I think it needs to be 10 feet.
If it's properties, if the sewer on this property serves another property, not if it just, there's a possibility that it just took waste from some of the back buildings historically. It did come from Clover. So I think the easement's only required if it services another property.
Wouldn't you want an easement regardless of who it serves? So that
It's not clear on the survey. That was the problem I had. It's not clear what happens there.
If the sewer line that's on this property just takes waste from this property, I mean, your house doesn't have an easement to take waste from your house to the street. You don't need one, because it's just on the property. If someone else, a different owner, their sewer line crosses through this, then an easement would be required if it services a different property. So I think you just find out if this sewer line is servicing other, and the only other place that it could service would be Colello Place. There's no other.
Because it goes out to Pine Street.
Yeah, it goes out to Pine Street.
Right.
And the receptacle, they might have disturbed some old buildings that used to be there that aren't there anymore. You just don't know. So you just have to do a little more investigating of what's there.
Yeah, from the survey and what is shown coming in, it could be abandoned
That's what I
service
think it is.
line. Or it could be servicing some off-site system. So either way, whatever's coming into that manhole, we need an easement for the line all the way through your property, 5 feet.
If it's servicing another property, right? Only, I don't think it's
I think it's apparent that it is servicing multiple properties. So I think it's just safe for the board now to get an easement for that line.
But, it seems like you're making more work, because if it doesn't, if you can find out that it doesn't serve other properties, then wouldn't you agree you don't need the easement? So for example.
But I don't know who's going to do that, because the
That's right.
applicant doesn't sound like they're going to survey it.
Of its sewer lines, as does.
Well,
Does it-
they have what they think that is mostly a map. But you, I mean, Mr. Ianwale, you were,
Okay, then who are you going to grant the easement to? If you don't, if there's this thing here, who's
The
gonna hold?
easement is, so if it's connected to the overall system of the township can access and repair and/or, have access to that pipeline that's part of their infrastructure. So I think an easement is important here.
Okay, I'll defer to you,
I agree with you, assuming it's part of the town infrastructure, which
yes.
we think it probably is, but I think what Mr. Nawali is saying is possibly
Yeah,
it
because
might
it's
not be.
also showing an 8-inch line. That's usually a main. The service lines are usually 4 inches from home to 3 inches. This is showing an 8-inch line. That's usually your whole main system connection.
So I may be taking the easy way out, but I see no harm, no foul
So
by
who-
getting
who
a,
rights- Who has rights over that easement? How do you find out? Just the town?
we'll provide that the town, that the easement is in favor of the township, and then let the chips fall where they may. I don't see any, because the applicant is unwilling, and I'm not complaining. The applicant is unwilling to go through the process of figuring this out, and the town has problems trying to figure it out. I can't imagine that the board is going to spend the time dealing with this. So
I'm happy to talk to I'm happy to talk to Gary Abzarni and Sewer and see if
Yeah.
they have some maps that might help clarify this.
okay, and let me know.
Yeah, and you
Okay.
and I will figure it out.
Okay. I still have more
Yes.
possible conditions.
I believe there's more.
Yeah. The stormwater will be subject to the approval of the engineer. The applicant will comply with the recommendations and other requirements set forth in the engineer's report. The applicant will install a warning device of some kind for exiting vehicles,
But not an audible one, yes.
not audible.
I think that would be unfair to the people that have an apartment right next to it.
So some lighting,
Yes.
flashing lights or something along those lines. The applicant will employ level 2 EV chargers. The air conditioning unit noise level on the roof shall not exceed state law requirements. And I think I have one more.
We have the other easements also, are
And include all the other easements.
the cross easements between the two properties.
Right. I'm throwing that ball into your court, and you can, those will be subject to sending them to me for my review
course.
and approval. And then the last one that I have is that the applicant will check to determine whether or not the trash enclosure has or requires a permit.
The other one I had was the applicant will take another look at the lighting deficiencies in the parking lot and propose a solution that gets to, the required illumination of that parking lot without adding additional light to, the adjoining properties or, creating too high of an illumination at the property boundary.
I think probably a bollard or two.
I think a bollard or two would be just fine.
Solve the problem.
Screened so it's not shining, backwards towards the adjoining
Sure.
property.
And making it subject to the board engineer.
Board engineer's approval. And Mr. Trumbullack, your client's trying to get your attention.
May I speak to the lady? 'Cause
And those were all the conditions I had, and I think one other just piece of context is that I see this building being similar in its new condition to a lot of the other buildings in the area and consistent. And with that, that's my motion.
Second.
call the roll.
Yes, I'll call roll. Mr. Brodock,
Yes.
Mr. Ianwali,
Yes.
Ms. Lockman.
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz,
Yes.
sorry, Ms. Schlager,
Yes.
Ms. Willis.
Yes, I would like to say that I am sympathetic to the concerns of neighbors who are living near there. I know that the train station has brought additional traffic to the neighborhood, and there has been some changes that have upset, the normal prior calmness of that area. However, I don't feel that I, as a board member, can oppose it at this time because it's zoned for the particular use that's being requested. And because the variances that are requested are really pre-existing conditions anyway. So I understand how it feels to feel that the neighborhood is getting more populated and crowded than we want it to be. But I don't feel I have a basis to vote against it, and therefore I'm going to vote yes.
Mr. Jacobson,
I appreciate Ms. Willis's comments and subscribe to them, but yes.
Mr. Neiman.
Yes.
The motion is passed unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
No, no. We have an executive session to get to as well. Yes, yes. So, the next application is application 2815, 602 Bloomfield Avenue, Mad Gardeners LLC, and I would suggest we move this to a different evening.
Good evening, yes. We're open to that suggestion. Would it be the next meeting, though, where there's a time you can start?
Mr. Sibilia?
October 17th is the next meeting. I would have to check. I would have to check the agenda. I don't know. I'd have to look at the agenda.
Okay.
I can get in touch with you tomorrow once I have a chance to.
But we need to deal with it tonight.
For the benefit of the public as to what the next meeting.
Absolutely.
It's the, that storage unit thing.
All right, we'll check.
The next meeting is the referral of the accessory dwelling ordinance, and then there's a minor subdivision. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we could squeeze.
So the subdivision, so they would come after the subdivision?
I don't know that they're happy with
I assume, based on application number, but the subdivision, do you know which one is it?
It's like a private house.
Is that the one that's on Glen Ridge? I think we could get it in.
There'll be neighbors coming to that one, for sure.
Oh.
I mean,
What do you think? What about did you pull the next agenda or no?
yeah, he just, oh, you want to look at the next one? Sure.
I think they're doing a lot more on
Yeah, that's the next one.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
Don't do that one.
Electoral range and dental emergency.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I think,
Have you talked to him?
So, just so the record is clear,
Oh, it's big.
this application for Mad Gardner LLC, application 2815, is being continued till the board's October 17 meeting. You're going to allow the board any time that it needs under the MLUL.
Applicant waives timeframes.
And because we are making this announcement publicly now, there's no need for the applicant to republish or reissue notices by mail.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thanks for waiting. Sorry, you might have enjoyed, you learned stuff.
He's ready to start building.
And at this time, I would make a motion to move into executive session to discuss an issue regarding an approved site plan. No, well, we need to finish this motion. So, motion by Mr. Brodock, second by Mr. Neiman. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We're in executive session. Back on the record at 11:09. Are we recording? No. Okay.
We're live on TV.
We're live on TV though. Okay. But, well, let's make sure this thing's on so it's. We're on? Okay. So we're back on the record at, well, it was 11:09, but now that the recorder's going, it's 11:10. Do we have any bills? We don't have any bills.
We had bills.
We did have bills, yeah.
Yeah.
We had bills.
Oh, hard copy bills in the packet?
Yeah.
Oh, they were
Yeah,
not,
yeah.
they were not sent out electronically.
Ah, well, here they are.
So,
I move that we pay the bills.
second. Motion by Ms. Lockman, second by Mr. Jacobson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? I move to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Mr. Jacobson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Have a good night.
Okay.